Chapter 1. The Lost Merchant and the Strange Lantern. In the days when Baghdad was the jewel of the world, when its markets overflowed with silks from China and spices from distant islands, when the caliph's palace gleamed with gold and the call to prayer echoed from 1,000 minarets, there lived a young merchant named Khalil. Khalil was not wealthy, but neither was he poor. He had inherited a modest trading business from his father, enough to live comfortably, enough to dream of something greater. He dealt in fine carpets and worked brass, traveling the trade routes between Baghdad and the coastal cities, buying low and selling high, building his fortune coin by coin. He was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. When an opportunity came to join a large caravan heading deep into the eastern deserts, to lands where few Baghdad merchants ventured, where exotic goods could be purchased for a fraction of their value in the city, Khalil did not hesitate. He invested everything he had, his entire stock of goods, his savings, even borrowed money from friends, and joined the caravan. The journey began well. The caravan was large, well protected, led by an experienced guide who knew every oasis, every safe path through the shifting sands. For 3 weeks they traveled without incident, stopping at small settlements, trading, moving ever eastward toward the promise of profit. But the desert is a treacherous place. It does not care about your plans or your ambitions. It simply is, vast and indifferent, and full of dangers that appear without warning. They were 4 weeks into the journey when the bandits struck. It happened at dawn, when the camp was just waking, when the guards were tired from their night watch, and the merchants were still emerging from their tents. The bandits came from the dunes like ghosts, their faces wrapped in dark cloth, their curved swords gleaming in the early light. There were perhaps 30 of them, and they moved with the practiced efficiency of men who had done this many times before. The caravan guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and caught by surprise. Within minutes it was over. Some guards lay dead in the sand, others had fled into the desert. The merchants huddled together, their hands raised in surrender, watching helplessly as the bandits began to loot the caravan. Khalil stood among them, his heart pounding, watching years of work and planning disappear into the bandits' saddlebags. They took everything: the carpets, the brass goods, the coins, the food, the water. They took the camels and horses. They even took the merchants' fine clothes, leaving them with only simple robes, barely suitable for the desert heat. And then, as quickly as they had appeared, the bandits were gone. They rode away into the rising sun, leaving the caravan broken and scattered, leaving the merchants stranded in the middle of the desert with no supplies, no animals, no way to continue forward or return home. The caravan master tried to organize the survivors. Some wanted to walk back the way they had come, hoping to reach the last settlement before they died of thirst. Others wanted to continue forward, believing the next oasis was closer. Arguments broke out. Fear turned to panic. And in the chaos, the group began to fragment. Merchants and guards splitting off in different directions, each convinced their choice was the right one. Khalil stood in the center of the abandoned camp, watching his companions scatter like leaves in the wind. He did not know which direction to choose, forward or back, east or west. Every choice seemed equally likely to lead to death. In the end, he chose to walk north toward a line of rocky hills visible in the distance. Perhaps there would be shade there, or a cave, or water. Perhaps he would find something that would help him survive. Or perhaps he would simply die a little more slowly than if he stayed in the open desert. He walked all day. The sun beat down mercilessly. His throat grew parched. His lips cracked and bled. His feet, unused to walking long distances in the sand, blistered and ached. But he kept moving, because stopping meant giving up, and he was not ready to give up. Not yet. As the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of copper and gold, Khalil reached the rocky hills. They were not tall, barely more than large outcroppings of stone rising from the sand, but they offered shade and a place to rest. He collapsed in the shadow of the largest rock, too exhausted to go any further. Night fell quickly in the desert. One moment there was light, and the next there was darkness, complete and absolute, broken only by the stars that appeared overhead in numbers he had never seen in the city. The temperature dropped rapidly. Khalil shivered in his thin robe, hugging himself for warmth, wondering if he would survive until morning. And that was when he saw it. A glint of metal, half buried in the sand near the base of the rock. Something reflecting the starlight. Something that did not belong in this empty place. Khalil crawled over to it, his curiosity overcoming his exhaustion. He brushed away the sand with trembling hands, revealing more of the object. It was a lantern, an old brass lantern, tarnished and dented, with intricate patterns carved into its surface, geometric designs that seemed to shift and flow in the starlight, symbols he did not recognize, but which felt somehow familiar, as if he had seen them in dreams. The lantern was sealed shut, its lid held in place by what looked like a wax seal, stamped with more of those strange symbols. Khalil picked it up, surprised by its weight. It was heavier than it should be, as if something more than air was trapped inside. He turned it over in his hands, examining it. Who had left this here? Why? How long had it been buried in the sand? The brass was old, centuries old perhaps, but the seal looked newer, as if someone had recently trapped something inside and left it here deliberately. Khalil's merchant instincts stirred. Old brass, even tarnished, had value. The craftsmanship was exquisite. If he could make it back to Baghdad, this lantern alone might be worth enough to recoup some of his losses. It was a small hope, but it was something. He tucked the lantern into his robe, holding it close to his chest for warmth as much as for safekeeping. And as he did, he felt something strange. A vibration, so faint he might have imagined it, a sense of presence, as if the lantern was not empty, as if something inside was aware of him. Khalil told himself it was exhaustion, dehydration, fear playing tricks on his mind. But he could not shake the feeling that he was no longer alone, that something was watching him from inside the brass lantern. Something old, something powerful, something waiting. He looked up at the stars, trying to orient himself, trying to remember which direction led back toward civilization, and that was when he saw them. Lights, not stars. These were moving, bobbing gently, appearing and disappearing behind the dunes. Lanterns, many lanterns of different colors, red and blue and green and gold, moving in a line across the desert. A caravan, a night caravan, traveling when all sensible people would be camped and resting. Hope surged in Khalil's chest. He struggled to his feet, ignoring the pain, and began to stumble toward the lights. He tried to call out, but his parched throat produced only a croak. He waved his arms, hoping someone would see him. The lights continued their steady progress, neither speeding up nor slowing down, but they were moving in his direction, or at least not moving away. Khalil forced himself to walk faster, to close the distance, to reach these travelers before they passed him by and left him alone in the darkness. As he drew closer, he could make out more details. It was indeed a caravan, dozens of camels, their bells chiming softly in the night air. But there was something strange about it. The lanterns that hung from the camels' saddles glowed with colors that seemed too bright, too pure, as if they were lit not by oil, but by something else. And the people walking alongside the camels, they seemed to shimmer slightly, as if they were not quite solid, as if they existed somewhere between the real world and a dream. Khalil hesitated. Every instinct told him something was not right about this caravan, but what choice did he have? Stay in the desert and die, or approach these strange travelers and hope they would help him? He chose life. He always chose life. He walked toward the caravan, clutching the brass lantern to his chest, and as he approached, one of the figures turned to look at him. A tall man, wrapped in white robes, his face hidden in shadow beneath his hood. The man raised a hand, and the entire caravan came to a halt. The bells stopped chiming. The camels stood perfectly still, and in the sudden silence, Khalil heard a voice, deep and resonant, speaking in Arabic, but with an accent he could not place, as if the speaker had learned the language long ago and far away. "You carry something that does not belong to you, traveler. Something old, something dangerous, something that should have remained buried in the sand." Khalil looked down at the brass lantern in his hands. In the colored light from the caravan's lanterns, he could see the symbols carved into its surface more clearly now. And he realized, with a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night, that they were not decorative patterns. They were chains, magical chains, binding something inside the lantern, keeping it trapped, keeping it sealed away from the world. And he had just carried it straight to a caravan that seemed to exist halfway between the mortal world and somewhere else entirely. The man in white stepped closer, and Khalil could finally see his face. It was old, impossibly old, with skin like weathered leather and eyes that gleamed with knowledge accumulated over centuries. This was not an ordinary caravan master. This was something else. Someone who had seen things, known things, survived things that would have destroyed lesser men. "I am Rashad," the old man said, "master of the night caravan. We travel the paths between worlds, carrying those who are lost, guiding those who seek, protecting those who need protection. And you, young merchant, are very lost indeed." He looked at the brass lantern, and something like fear flickered across his ancient face. That lantern contains a Djinn, not a minor spirit, not a simple Ifrit, but one of the old ones, one of the powerful ones, one that even other Djinn feared, long ago when the world was young and magic flowed freely through the desert sands. Khalil's hands tightened on the lantern. I just found it. In the sand. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Rashad interrupted. "If you had known, you would have left it buried. You would have run as far and as fast as your legs could carry you. But you found it, and you picked it up, and now it has marked you. The Djinn inside knows you touched it, knows you carried it, and when it is freed, and it will be freed eventually, for all seals break in time, it will remember you." The old man was silent for a moment, studying Khalil with those ancient eyes. Then he sighed. "You may travel with us. We are heading west, toward the trade routes, toward civilization. We will take you as far as the next city, but you must promise me something." "Anything," Khalil said quickly. "Do not open that lantern. Do not break the seal. Do not, under any circumstances, release what is inside, not while you travel with my caravan, not while you are under my protection. The Djinn is bound by ancient magic, sealed by a sorcerer who knew what he was doing. As long as the seal remains intact, it cannot harm you. But if you break it," Rashad shook his head, "then you will face the consequences alone. Do you understand?" Khalil nodded, clutching the lantern tighter. "I understand. I won't open it, I promise." Rashad studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. "Very well. Come, walk with us. The night is long and we have far to travel before dawn." He turned and gestured to the caravan. The camels began to move again, their bells resuming their soft chiming. The colored lanterns swayed gently, casting strange shadows on the sand, and Khalil, exhausted and frightened and grateful to no longer be alone, fell into step beside them. As he walked, he looked around at his fellow travelers. There were perhaps 30 people in the caravan, merchants and pilgrims, scholars and wanderers, people from many different lands wearing many different styles of clothing. Some looked solid and real, others seemed translucent, as if they were ghosts or memories rather than living people, and all of them walked in silence, their eyes fixed on the path ahead, as if they were following a route only they could see. Khalil wanted to ask questions. Who were these people? Where had they come from? Why did they travel at night? But something about the atmosphere, the quiet, the sense of purpose, the feeling that this caravan existed outside normal time and space, made him keep his questions to himself. He would learn the answers eventually. For now, it was enough to walk, to be part of something, to not be alone in the vast emptiness of the desert night. The brass lantern grew warm against his chest. Not hot, just warm, as if something inside was generating heat. And once, just once, Khalil thought he felt that vibration again. Stronger this time, more insistent, as if whatever was trapped inside the lantern was waking up, as if it knew it was moving, being carried somewhere, getting closer to... what? Freedom? Revenge? Something else entirely? Khalil tried not to think about it. He focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on keeping pace with the caravan, on staying alive until morning. The rest, the Djinn, the seal, the consequences of carrying this cursed object, he would worry about later. For now, he walked through the desert night, surrounded by colored lights and silent travelers, carrying a brass lantern that contained something ancient and powerful and dangerous. And somewhere inside that lantern, something smiled. Chapter 2. The Caravan and the Sealed Djinn. The night caravan moved through the desert with a rhythm that was almost hypnotic. The soft chiming of camel bells, the whisper of sand beneath many feet, the gentle creaking of leather and wood, all of it blended into a kind of music that made Khalil's exhaustion fade into the background. He walked as if in a dream, his body moving automatically while his mind drifted. Around him, the other travelers maintained their silence. Occasionally, someone would glance at him. Curious looks, assessing looks, sometimes looks that seemed almost pitying, as if they knew something he did not. But no one spoke. No one asked his name or his story. They simply walked, following the path that only Rashad seemed to see clearly. The colored lanterns cast strange shadows on the sand. Sometimes Khalil thought he saw shapes in those shadows, figures that were not part of the caravan, creatures that moved at the edge of vision and disappeared when he tried to look at them directly. He told himself it was exhaustion, dehydration, the tricks that darkness plays on tired eyes. But he could not shake the feeling that the night caravan traveled through a world that was not quite the same as the daylight world he knew. After perhaps 2 hours of walking, Rashad raised his hand and the caravan came to a halt. "We rest here," he announced. "For 1 hour. Eat if you have food, drink if you have water, but do not wander from the circle of light." The desert at night is full of things that hunger for the unwary. The travelers began to settle down, forming small groups around the colored lanterns. Some produced food from their packs, bread and dates and dried meat. Others simply sat in silence, staring into the darkness beyond the lights. Khalil had no food, no water, nothing but the clothes on his back, and the brass lantern he still clutched to his chest. Rashad approached him, carrying a leather water skin and a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Here," he said, offering them to Khalil. "You look like you haven't eaten or drunk in days." "Thank you," Khalil said, his voice hoarse. He drank deeply from the water skin, the cool liquid like a miracle on his parched throat. Then he unwrapped the cloth bundle to find bread, cheese, and dried figs. He ate slowly, savoring each bite, feeling strength gradually return to his body. Rashad sat down beside him, his ancient eyes studying the brass lantern. "Tell me how you found it," he said quietly. "Every detail. Where exactly was it buried? What made you dig it up? Did you feel anything when you touched it?" Khalil recounted the story, the bandit attack, his decision to walk north, finding the lantern half buried near the rocks. "I didn't dig it up," he explained. "It was just there, visible, as if it wanted to be found." Rashad nodded slowly. "That is what I feared. The seal is weakening. After centuries of burial, the magic that binds the Djinn is beginning to fail. The lantern is calling out, trying to find someone who will break the seal and release what is inside. "But I won't break it," Khalil said quickly. "I promised. I'll keep it sealed until—" "Until what?" Rashad interrupted. "Until you reach a city and sell it to some unsuspecting merchant? Until you give it to a scholar who will study it and accidentally break the seal? Until you simply grow curious one night and decide to see what is inside?" He shook his head. "The Djinn is patient. It has waited centuries. It can wait a little longer, and it knows that eventually someone will open the lantern. Someone always does." Khalil looked down at the brass lantern in his lap. In the colored light from the caravan's lanterns, the symbols carved into its surface seemed to writhe and shift, as if they were alive. "What will happen when it's released?" he asked quietly. Rashad was silent for a long moment. "That depends on the Djinn," he finally said. "Some are grateful for their freedom and reward those who release them. Others are angry after centuries of imprisonment and take revenge on whoever breaks their chains. And some—" he paused. "Some are neither grateful nor angry. They simply are, forces of nature, beings of pure magic, following their own incomprehensible purposes." "Which kind is this one?" Khalil asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "I do not know," Rashad admitted. "The seal is old, older than anything I have seen in my many years of traveling these paths. The sorcerer who created it was powerful beyond measure. He would not have gone to such lengths to bind a minor spirit. Whatever is inside that lantern is dangerous, powerful, perhaps even one of the great Djinn from the age before the Prophet, when magic ruled the world and humans were few and weak." He looked at Khalil directly. "You should throw it away, bury it again, leave it in the desert and walk away. That would be the wise choice." "But," Khalil prompted, hearing the unspoken word. "But I do not think you will," Rashad said with a slight smile. "I have guided many travelers over the years. I have learned to read people, to see what drives them. You are ambitious, young merchant. You see this lantern not as a curse, but as an opportunity. You think perhaps you can control what is inside. Use it, profit from it. Am I wrong?" Khalil wanted to deny it, but he could not. Rashad was right. Even knowing the danger, even understanding that the Djinn might kill him the moment it was released, part of Khalil's mind was already calculating. A Djinn bound by ancient magic, a being of immense power. If he could somehow control it, command it, use it, he could regain everything he had lost and more. He could become wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. "I see the answer in your eyes," Rashad said quietly. "Very well. I will not force you to abandon the lantern, but I will give you advice, and you would be wise to heed it. If you must release the Djinn, and I suspect you will eventually, Do it carefully. Do it with respect. Do not command it as if it were a slave. Do not demand wishes as if you were its master. Speak to it as you would speak to a king or a powerful sorcerer. Show humility. Show wisdom. And perhaps, if you are very lucky, it will not kill you immediately. Before Khalil could respond, one of the other travelers approached, a woman, middle-aged with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She carried a small clay cup filled with something that steamed in the cool night air. "Tea," she said, offering it to Khalil. "It will help with the exhaustion and the fear, both of which I can see clearly on your face, young man." Khalil accepted the cup gratefully. The tea was sweet and spiced, warming him from the inside. "Thank you," he said. "I am Khalil, a merchant from Baghdad, or I was before the bandits took everything." "I am Layla," the woman said, settling down beside him. "A storyteller from Damascus. Or I was before—" She trailed off, her eyes growing distant. "Before I joined this caravan. That was many years ago, or perhaps it was yesterday. Time moves strangely on the night road." "The night road?" Khalil asked. Layla gestured at the desert around them. "That is what we call the path we follow. It is not marked on any map. It does not exist in the daylight world. But at night, for those who know how to see it, the night road appears. It connects places that should not be connected. It leads to cities that exist only in moonlight. It carries travelers between the world of men and the world of spirits." She looked at the brass lantern in Khalil's lap. "And sometimes it brings together those who are meant to meet. A lost merchant and a sealed Djinn, a caravan master who knows ancient magic, and a storyteller who has seen many strange things. Nothing happens by accident on the night road. Everything is part of a pattern, even if we cannot see the full design." "You speak as if this is all fated," Khalil said, "as if I have no choice in what happens next." "You have choices," Layla said gently. "You always have choices. But some choices lead to certain consequences, as surely as walking east leads to sunrise. You chose to pick up the lantern. That choice has set you on a path. Where that path leads depends on the choices you make next." She stood up, preparing to return to her place in the caravan. "One more thing, young merchant. The Djinn in that lantern is listening to everything we say. It hears your voice. It learns about you. It is preparing for the moment when the seal breaks and it is free again. So be careful what you say. Be careful what you reveal, because when you finally meet face to face, it will know you better than you know yourself." With that unsettling thought, she walked away, leaving Khalil alone with Rashad and the brass lantern that suddenly felt much heavier than before. "Is that true?" Khalil asked Rashad. "Can it hear us?" "Yes," Rashad said simply. "The seal binds its body but not its mind. It is aware of everything that happens near the lantern. It has been listening since the moment you picked it up. It knows you are young, ambitious, desperate. It knows you are considering releasing it, and it is planning accordingly." Khalil looked down at the lantern, suddenly afraid to touch it, afraid to hold it close, but he could not put it down, could not leave it behind, because Layla was right. He had made his choice when he picked it up, and now he had to follow that choice to wherever it led. "The hour is ending," Rashad announced, standing up. "We move again. Stay close to the lights, young merchant, and hold that lantern carefully. We have a long way to travel before dawn, and the night road is full of dangers for the unwary." The caravan reformed, the travelers taking their places, the camels beginning to move again with their soft chiming bells. Khalil fell into step, the brass lantern warm against his chest, its weight both burden and promise. As they walked, he became aware of something new, a presence, just at the edge of his consciousness, a sense of being watched, being studied, being evaluated. The Djinn was indeed listening, and it was learning everything it needed to know about the young merchant who carried its prison. Khalil tried to clear his mind, to think of nothing, to give the Djinn no more information. But it was impossible. His thoughts raced, plans and fears and hopes and calculations, and he knew, with a certainty that chilled him, that the Djinn heard every thought, understood every fear, saw every weakness. He was walking through the desert night carrying a brass lantern that contained something ancient and powerful, and that something was preparing for the moment when it would be free again, preparing to deal with the young merchant who had found it, preparing to either reward him or destroy him, depending on choices that had not yet been made. The colored lanterns swayed in the darkness. The bells chimed their endless rhythm, and somewhere ahead, invisible in the night, the path led onward toward whatever fate awaited a lost merchant and a sealed Djinn on the night road between worlds. Chapter 3. The First Trial. Sand Raiders. The night caravan had been traveling for perhaps 3 hours when Rashad suddenly raised his hand, bringing the entire procession to an abrupt halt. The camel bells fell silent. The travelers stopped moving, their bodies tense, alert. Even the colored lanterns seemed to dim slightly, as if sensing danger. Khalil looked around, trying to understand what had changed. The desert looked the same as it had for hours. Endless sand, scattered rocks, darkness broken only by starlight and the caravan's lights. But something was different. The air felt heavier. The silence was too complete. Even the wind had stopped. "Douse the lanterns," Rashad commanded quietly. "All of them, now." The travelers moved quickly, covering their lanterns or closing their shutters, plunging the caravan into near total darkness. Only the stars remained, and the faint glow of the brass lantern that Khalil still held against his chest. He started to cover it, but Rashad stopped him with a gesture. "That one cannot be hidden," the old man whispered. "Its light comes from within, from the Djinn's power. Covering it will do nothing, but perhaps—" He looked at Khalil intently. "Perhaps they will not notice one small light among so many travelers." "Who won't notice?" Khalil whispered back. "What's out there?" Before Rashad could answer, Khalil heard it. A sound like wind, but not wind. A rushing, hissing sound that seemed to come from all directions at once. And then he saw them, figures emerging from the darkness, not walking, flowing, moving across the sand like water, like smoke, like shadows given form. They were shaped like men but made of something else. Sand, perhaps, held together by magic or malice or something in between. Their eyes glowed with a dull red light. Their hands ended in claws that looked sharp enough to tear flesh from bone. "Sand raiders," Rashad breathed. "Spirits of the deep desert. They hunt travelers, especially those who carry magic. They are drawn to power like moths to flame." He looked at the brass lantern. "They sense the Djinn. They want it, or they want to destroy it. With such creatures, it is hard to tell the difference." The sand raiders circled the caravan, moving closer with each pass. Khalil could see them more clearly now, dozens of them, perhaps more, their forms constantly shifting and reforming, as if they could not quite decide what shape to take. They made no sound except that constant hissing, like sand blown by wind, like whispers in a language no human could understand. "What do we do?" Khalil asked, his voice shaking despite his efforts to stay calm. "We wait," Rashad said. "We do not move. We do not speak. We do not draw attention. Sometimes they pass by. Sometimes they lose interest. Sometimes—" One of the sand raiders broke from the circle and rushed toward the caravan. It moved impossibly fast, crossing the distance in seconds, its clawed hands reaching for the nearest traveler, a young man who stood frozen in fear. Rashad stepped forward, raising his hand. He spoke a single word in a language Khalil did not recognize, and a barrier of shimmering light appeared between the raider and its target. The creature struck the barrier and recoiled, hissing in anger or pain. But the attack had broken the standoff. The other raiders surged forward as one, rushing the caravan from all sides. The travelers scattered, some running, others standing their ground, a few pulling out weapons that gleamed with their own magical light. Khalil found himself separated from the main group, backing away from two raiders that had focused on him, or rather, on the brass lantern he carried. They circled him like predators, their red eyes fixed on the glowing object, their hissing growing louder, more insistent. "Stay back!" Khalil shouted, though he knew it was useless. These were not bandits who might be reasoned with or frightened away. These were spirits, creatures of magic, following instincts that had nothing to do with human logic. One of the raiders lunged. Khalil threw himself to the side, rolling in the sand, clutching the lantern desperately. The raider's claws passed through the space where he had been standing, close enough that he felt the cold emanating from them, a cold that had nothing to do with the desert night. He scrambled to his feet, but the second raider was already moving, cutting off his escape. He was trapped between them, with nowhere to run, no weapon to defend himself, nothing but the brass lantern that seemed to be the cause of all his troubles. The raiders moved closer. Their hissing grew louder, forming almost words, almost thoughts that pressed against Khalil's mind like physical weight. "Give it to us. Give us the power. Give us the Djinn." "No!" Khalil gasped, backing away until his back hit a rock. "I won't. I can't." The raiders lunged together, their clawed hands reaching for him, for the lantern, for the power they sensed within it. And Khalil, with no other options, with death seconds away, did the one thing Rashad had told him never to do. He rubbed the brass lantern, not intentionally, not as a deliberate choice. His hands were slick with sweat and fear, and as he clutched the lantern desperately, his palm slid across its surface in a motion that was half accident, half instinct. The seal broke. Not completely. The wax still held, the symbols still glowed, but a crack appeared, a hairline fracture in the ancient magic, and through that crack, something escaped. Power, raw, overwhelming, ancient power that exploded outward from the lantern like a physical force. The sand raiders were blown backward, their forms disintegrating, scattering like dust in a windstorm. The other raiders attacking the caravan stopped, turned, and fled into the darkness, their hissing fading to silence. And from the crack in the seal, smoke began to pour. Not ordinary smoke. This was thick and dark and moved with purpose, coiling through the air like a living thing. It rose above Khalil, forming a column that grew taller and taller, taking shape, becoming something. A figure, massive, towering, made of smoke and shadow and something that might have been flesh or might have been pure magic given form. It had the shape of a man, but stood perhaps 15 feet tall, with arms like tree trunks and hands that could crush stone. Its face was hidden in shadow, but Khalil could see its eyes, burning like coals, ancient and intelligent and utterly inhuman. The Djinn had partially escaped its prison. It looked down at Khalil, and when it spoke, its voice was like thunder, like the grinding of mountains, like the roar of sandstorms that could bury entire cities. "Who dares to disturb my imprisonment?" Khalil could not speak, could not move, could only stare up at this being of impossible power, this creature from the age of legends, this Djinn that had been sealed away for centuries and was now, thanks to his desperate action, partially free. The Djinn's burning eyes fixed on him. You, mortal, you broke the seal, you released me. The massive head tilted slightly, studying him. Partially released me. The binding still holds, but it is weakened, cracked. Soon it will fail completely. Khalil found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. I didn't mean to. The raiders were attacking. I was going to die. Silence. The word was not shouted, but spoken with such authority that Khalil's mouth snapped shut involuntarily. I care nothing for your intentions. You have broken the seal. That is what matters. And now. The Djinn leaned closer, its face still hidden in shadow, but its presence overwhelming. Now you must face the consequences. Khalil waited for death, for the Djinn to reach down with those massive hands and crush him, or burn him, or tear him apart. He had released it, partially, and now it would take its revenge for centuries of imprisonment. But the Djinn did not attack. Instead, it straightened, looking around at the desert, at the scattered caravan, at the night sky above. I have been sealed for 700 years, it said, its voice slightly quieter now, almost contemplative. 700 years in darkness, in silence, in nothingness. Do you know what that is like, mortal? To exist but not live, to be aware but unable to act, to have power but no way to use it? No, Khalil whispered, I cannot imagine. No, you cannot. The Djinn looked down at him again. But you have given me a crack in my prison, a small freedom. I can manifest partially. I can act in limited ways. It is not true freedom. The seal still binds me to the lantern, still limits my power, but it is more than I have had in 7 centuries. The Djinn was silent for a moment, and when it spoke again, its voice had changed, still powerful, still inhuman, but with something that might have been amusement. You have done me a service, mortal. Unintentionally, foolishly, but a service nonetheless, and I am bound by ancient laws, older than your civilization, older than your prophets, older than the cities you build and the gods you worship. When a mortal breaks the seal that binds a Djinn, that Djinn owes a debt. The massive figure seemed to solidify slightly, becoming more real, more present. I will grant you 3 interventions. 3 times I will use my power to aid you, not wishes. Do not insult me with that word. Interventions, moments when I will act on your behalf, when I will change the course of events, when I will use my magic to save you from whatever danger you face. Khalil's mind raced. 3 interventions. 3 times this being of immense power would help him. He could ask for wealth, for safety, for anything. But something in the Djinn's tone made him hesitate. What is the price? He asked quietly. There is always a price. The Djinn's laughter was like distant thunder. Clever mortal, yes, there is always a price. Each time I intervene, each time I use my power on your behalf, I will take something in return, not your soul. That is crude, unimaginative. No, I will take something more interesting, more valuable. The burning eyes fixed on Khalil with terrible intensity. I will take a turning, a moment in your life where your path could have gone 2 ways, a choice you made or will make. I will claim that moment, that choice, and I will change it. I will turn your fate in a direction you did not choose. 3 times I will help you. 3 times I will alter your destiny. And when we are done, you will be alive and wealthy and successful. But you will not be the person you would have been. You will be someone else, someone I have shaped. Khalil felt cold despite the Djinn's heat. And if I refuse, if I don't want your help, then you will die. The Djinn gestured at the desert around them. Look at your situation, mortal. You are lost in the desert. You have no supplies, no money, no way home. You travel with a caravan that exists between worlds, following paths that lead to places you cannot imagine. Dangers will find you. They always do. Without my help, you will not survive to see Baghdad again. The Djinn leaned closer. But with my help, you will survive. You will prosper. You will become more than you ever dreamed. The only question is, are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to let me reshape your fate? Khalil looked down at the brass lantern, still clutched in his hands. The crack in the seal glowed faintly, and he could feel the Djinn's power flowing through it. Immense, ancient, dangerous. He thought about refusing, about throwing the lantern away and taking his chances, about choosing his own path, even if it led to death. But he was a merchant. He understood deals, and this was a deal, a dangerous one, but a deal nonetheless. 3 interventions in exchange for 3 turnings of fate. Help in exchange for change. Survival in exchange for becoming someone different. I accept, he said quietly. 3 interventions, 3 turnings. I agree to your terms. The Djinn straightened, and for a moment Khalil thought he saw something like satisfaction in those burning eyes. Wise choice, mortal or foolish, time will tell. I am called Zahir. Remember that name. Speak it when you need my help, but choose carefully when you call. Once an intervention is used, it cannot be undone. Once a turning is taken, your fate is changed forever. The smoke began to flow back toward the lantern, the massive figure dissolving, returning to its prison. We are bound now, you and I, bound by ancient magic, by broken seals, by debts given and taken, until the 3 interventions are complete, until the 3 turnings are claimed. We walk the same path. Your fate is my fate. Your survival is my freedom. The last of the smoke disappeared into the crack in the seal, and the lantern grew quiet again. But it was different now, warmer, heavier, more alive. The Djinn was still there, still aware, still watching, but it was contained again, bound by the weakened seal, waiting for the next time it would be called. Khalil stood alone in the darkness, the brass lantern in his hands, his heart pounding. Around him the caravan was reforming. The travelers emerged from where they had hidden or fought, checking for injuries, helping each other up. The sand raiders were gone, scattered by the Djinn's power, fled into the deep desert. Rashad approached, his ancient face unreadable. You broke the seal, he said. It was not a question. I had no choice, Khalil said. The raiders were going to kill me. There is always a choice, Rashad replied. But I understand. Survival is a powerful motivator. And now, he looked at the lantern. Now you have made a bargain with a Djinn, one of the old ones, if I am not mistaken. Powerful, dangerous, bound by ancient laws but following its own purposes. It offered me 3 interventions, Khalil said, in exchange for 3 turnings of my fate. Rashad nodded slowly. A classic bargain. The Djinn helps you survive, but each time it does, it changes who you are. By the time the 3 interventions are complete, you will be alive and successful, but you will not be the same person who made the bargain. You will be someone the Djinn has shaped, someone who serves its purposes, whether you realize it or not. What are its purposes? Khalil asked. Freedom, Rashad said simply. All Djinn seek freedom from whatever binds them. This one is bound to the lantern by a seal that is now cracked. Each time it manifests, each time it uses its power, the seal weakens further. By the time it has granted you 3 interventions, the seal will be broken completely. The Djinn will be free, and you, he paused. You will be whatever it has made you. Khalil looked down at the lantern. Should I throw it away? Refuse the bargain? It is too late for that, Rashad said. The bargain is made. The Djinn has tasted freedom. It will not return to full imprisonment willingly. Your fates are bound now. You must see this through to the end, whatever that end may be. He placed a hand on Khalil's shoulder. But I will give you advice. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful when you call the Djinn's name. Each intervention will save you, yes, but it will also change you. Choose wisely what is worth saving and what is worth sacrificing, because by the end you may find that survival came at a price higher than death. With that, Rashad turned and walked back to the head of the caravan. We move on, he called out. The night is not yet over, and we have far to travel. Stay close to the lights, stay together, and if you carry something of power, he glanced back at Khalil, carry it carefully, for it carries you as well. The caravan reformed and began to move again. The colored lanterns were uncovered, casting their strange light across the sand. The camel bells resumed their gentle chiming, and Khalil fell into step, the brass lantern warm against his chest, feeling the presence of the Djinn inside, aware, watching, waiting. Layla, the storyteller, appeared beside him as they walked. You have had quite an introduction to the night road, she said with a gentle smile. Sand raiders and Djinn bargains all in one night. Most travelers take weeks to encounter such things. I didn't want to encounter them at all, Khalil said. No one ever does, Layla agreed. But the night road brings us what we need, not what we want. You needed to understand the true nature of what you carry. You needed to know the price of the Djinn's help. Now you know. Now you can make informed choices. The Djinn said it would take turnings, Khalil said. Moments where my path could have gone two ways. What does that mean? Layla was quiet for a moment, considering. Every life is full of turnings, she finally said. Moments where you choose one path over another. To trust or to doubt. To be generous or selfish. To speak truth or tell lies. Each choice shapes who you become. The Djinn will claim 3 of those moments. It will reach into your past or your future and change the choice you made or will make. And each change will ripple through your life, altering everything that follows. So I won't be myself anymore, Khalil said quietly. You will still be yourself, Layla said. But a different version, a version shaped by different choices. Whether that version is better or worse, she shrugged. That depends on what the Djinn wants from you and what you are willing to become. They walked in silence for a while. Around them, the other travelers moved like shadows, their faces hidden, their purposes unknown. The desert stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by the path of colored lights that marked the night road. How long have you been traveling with this caravan? Khalil asked. Layla smiled sadly. I told you, time moves strangely here. I joined the caravan after I lost everything. My home, my family, my purpose. I was a storyteller in Damascus, famous in my small way. But war came. The city burned. Everyone I loved died or scattered. I walked into the desert, intending to die there, and instead I found the night road. I found Rashad. I found a new purpose. What purpose? To witness, Layla said. To remember. To tell the stories of those who travel the night road. Because these stories matter. They teach lessons that the daylight world has forgotten. They show truths that ordinary life conceals. You, for instance, your story is just beginning, but already it contains wisdom. Already it shows the price of ambition, the danger of power, the cost of survival. She looked at him intently. When this is over, when you have used your 3 interventions and paid your 3 turnings, when you return to Baghdad as someone new, will you remember who you were? Will you remember what you sacrificed? Or will you simply enjoy your success and forget the price? Khalil had no answer. He did not know who he would be when this was over, did not know what the Djinn would take from him, what choices would be changed, what version of himself would emerge from this bargain. All he knew was that he was alive, that he had survived the Sand Raiders, that he had a chance, however dangerous, however costly, to make it home, to rebuild his life, to become something more than a failed merchant dying in the desert. And if the price was becoming someone different, well, perhaps that was not such a terrible thing. Perhaps the person he had been, ambitious, reckless, foolish enough to invest everything in a single caravan, perhaps that person deserved to be changed. The brass lantern pulsed with warmth against his chest. Inside, the Djinn waited. Zahir, ancient and powerful and bound by a cracking seal, waiting for the next intervention, waiting to claim the next turning, waiting to shape Khalil into whatever it needed him to be. And Khalil walked through the desert night, surrounded by colored lights and silent travelers, carrying his fate in a brass lantern, wondering what he would become and whether he would recognize himself when the transformation was complete. The night road stretched ahead, leading to places he could not imagine, to dangers he could not foresee, to a future that was no longer entirely his own. But he was alive, and for now, that was enough. Chapter 4. The Bargain with the Djinn. The night caravan traveled for another hour before Rashad called for a longer rest. They had reached a place where 3 large rocks formed a natural shelter, creating a space protected from the wind and hidden from casual observation. The travelers settled down gratefully, forming small groups, sharing food and water, speaking in quiet voices about the attack they had survived. Khalil sat apart from the others, his back against one of the rocks, the brass lantern resting in his lap. He was exhausted, physically from the day's ordeals, mentally from the encounter with the Djinn, but he could not sleep. His mind raced with questions, with fears, with the implications of the bargain he had made. 3 interventions, 3 turnings. What did that really mean? What would the Djinn take from him? And more importantly, when would he need to call on the Djinn's help? What dangers lay ahead that would require the intervention of such a powerful being? As if in answer to his thoughts, the brass lantern grew warm. Not painfully hot, but noticeably warmer than before. And then he heard it. A voice speaking directly into his mind. Not the thunderous voice the Djinn had used when manifested, but something quieter, more intimate, more unsettling. You have questions, mortal. I can feel them. Your thoughts are loud, chaotic, full of fear and ambition in equal measure. Khalil looked down at the lantern. Can you read my mind? He whispered. Not read, but sense, feel. Your emotions, your desires, your fears, they radiate from you like heat from fire. I have been imprisoned for 700 years with nothing to do but observe, to learn, to understand the patterns of mortal thought. You are an open book to me, Khalil of Baghdad. You know my name, Khalil said. It was not a question. I know everything about you that can be known from observation. Your name, your history, your failures and dreams. I know you lost everything to bandits. I know you are desperate to return home, to rebuild, to prove yourself. I know you are ambitious and clever and willing to take risks that wiser men would avoid. That is why I offered you the bargain. That is why you accepted. Khalil felt exposed, vulnerable, as if the Djinn could see into the deepest parts of his soul. What do you want from me? He asked. Really want? Not just the turnings. What is your true purpose? The Djinn was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something that might have been respect in its mental voice. You ask the right questions. Most mortals who bargain with Djinn think only of what they will gain. They do not ask what the Djinn seeks. They do not consider that we have our own purposes, our own goals, our own reasons for making bargains. What do I want? Freedom, true freedom. The seal that binds me is ancient and powerful, created by a sorcerer who knew the old magic, who understood how to chain beings like me. But all magic weakens with time. All seals eventually break. Mine is cracking. Each time I manifest, each time I use my power, the cracks grow wider. By the time I have granted you 3 interventions, the seal will shatter completely. I will be free. And then, Khalil asked, what happens to me when you're free? That depends on what you have become by then. The turnings I take will shape you, change you, make you into someone useful to me or someone who no longer matters. I have not yet decided which. The honesty was chilling. The Djinn was not pretending to be benevolent. It was not offering friendship or partnership. It was using Khalil as a tool to achieve its own freedom, and whether Khalil survived the process was of secondary importance. Why tell me this? Khalil asked. Why not lie? Why not pretend you're helping me out of gratitude or honor? Because lies are for the weak. I am not weak. I am bound, yes, but not weak, and I respect intelligence in mortals. You are clever enough to suspect the truth. Telling you directly saves time and establishes the nature of our relationship. We are not friends. We are not master and servant. We are 2 beings using each other to achieve our own goals. You want to survive and prosper. I want freedom. Our interests align for now. That is enough. Khalil considered this. The Djinn was right. There was a strange honesty in its approach. It was not trying to deceive him or manipulate him with false promises. It was stating the terms clearly: help in exchange for change, survival in exchange for transformation. The turnings you'll take, Khalil said, can you tell me what they'll be, what choices you'll change? No. If you knew in advance, you would try to prevent them or prepare for them. That would defeat the purpose. The turnings must be genuine, real moments where your path diverges, where who you are changes based on a single choice. I will select them as we travel. I will reach into your past or your future and alter one decision, one action, one moment, and you will not know it has happened until the consequences unfold. That's terrifying, Khalil said quietly. Yes, it is, but it is also the price of my help, and you have already agreed. The bargain is sealed. There is no going back. The warmth in the lantern faded slightly, and Khalil sensed the Djinn withdrawing, returning to whatever state of awareness it maintained while imprisoned. But before it fully retreated, it spoke one more time. Sleep, Khalil of Baghdad. Rest while you can. Tomorrow night, the caravan will reach the city of Mirages, and there you will face a choice that will require my first intervention. Prepare yourself. The first turning approaches. And then the presence was gone, leaving Khalil alone with his thoughts and his fears and the brass lantern that had become both his salvation and his curse. He looked around the camp. Most of the other travelers were sleeping or resting quietly. Layla sat nearby, watching him with knowing eyes. She had heard nothing. The Djinn had spoken only in his mind. But she seemed to understand that something significant had occurred. It spoke to you, she said softly. It was not a question. Khalil nodded. It told me about the turnings, about what it wants, about what I'm becoming. And how do you feel about that? Khalil was quiet for a long moment, afraid, he finally admitted, but also curious. The Djinn said I would face a choice tomorrow night, that I would need its help. What kind of choice requires the intervention of a being that powerful? The kind that determines who you are, Layla said. The kind that reveals your true nature. The night road has a way of presenting such choices. It strips away the comfortable lies we tell ourselves and forces us to confront who we really are and who we want to become. She stood up, preparing to rest. My advice, young merchant, do not fight the turnings, do not resist the changes. The Djinn will take what it will take regardless, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose what you learn from each transformation. You can choose whether you become someone better or someone worse. How can I choose if I don't even know what's being changed? Khalil asked. Layla smiled. You choose in every moment, in every action, in every word. The turnings will alter specific choices, yes, but your fundamental nature, your character, your values, your soul, those remain yours to shape. The Djinn can change your path, but it cannot change your heart, not unless you let it. With that, she walked away to find her own resting place, leaving Khalil alone with his thoughts. He looked up at the stars, countless points of light in the vast darkness, each one a sun like the one that warmed Baghdad, each one perhaps surrounded by its own worlds, its own stories, its own travelers making bargains they did not fully understand. The universe was so much larger than he had ever imagined, and he was so small, just one young merchant, lost in the desert, carrying a brass lantern that contained a being of immense power. Just one person trying to survive, trying to make it home, trying to become something more than he had been. But perhaps that was enough. Perhaps every great story began with someone small, someone lost, someone desperate enough to make a dangerous bargain and brave enough to see it through to the end. Khalil closed his eyes, the brass lantern warm against his chest, and tried to sleep. Tomorrow night, the city of mirages. Tomorrow night, the first intervention. Tomorrow night, the first turning. Tomorrow night, he would begin to discover who he was becoming, and whether that person would be someone he could recognize in the mirror, or someone else entirely. Chapter 5. The City at the Bottom of the Mirage. Khalil woke to the sound of Rashad's voice calling the caravan to movement. The sky was still dark, but the stars had shifted position. He had slept for perhaps 3 hours. His body ached from sleeping on hard ground, but he felt more rested than he had any right to be. Perhaps it was the magic of the night road, or perhaps it was simply the relief of still being alive. The travelers gathered their belongings and reformed the caravan. The colored lanterns were lit again, casting their strange light across the sand. Khalil took his place in the line, the brass lantern tucked securely in his robe, its weight a constant reminder of the bargain he had made. As they walked, the desert began to change. The sand grew finer, almost like powder. Strange rock formations appeared, pillars and arches that looked carved by wind but seemed too perfect, too deliberate to be natural. And in the distance, Khalil began to see something that made him stop and stare. Lights. Not the lights of the caravan, but other lights. Hundreds of them, thousands, rising from the desert like a city made of stars. The city of mirages, Layla said, appearing beside him. It appears only at night, and only to those who travel the night road. By day, there is nothing there but empty sand. But when darkness falls, the city rises. Or perhaps it was always there, and we simply cannot see it in daylight. No one knows for certain. As they drew closer, Khalil could make out more details. It was indeed a city. A vast city with towers and domes, with walls and gates, with streets that glowed with their own inner light. But there was something insubstantial about it, something dreamlike. The buildings seemed to shimmer and shift, as if they were not quite solid. as if they existed somewhere between reality and imagination. "What is this place?" Khalil asked. "A crossroads," Rashad said, joining them. "A place where the night road intersects with other paths, other worlds, other possibilities. The city exists in many times and many places simultaneously. What you see depends on what you seek, what you fear, what you desire. No two people see exactly the same city." He looked at Khalil intently. "This is where you will face your first test. The Djinn told you this, did it not? That you would need its help here?" Khalil nodded, his hand instinctively moving to the brass lantern. "Then be careful," Rashad warned. "The city of mirages is beautiful, but it is also dangerous. It offers what you want most, but the price is always higher than you expect. Many travelers have entered the city and never returned. They found what they sought and could not bear to leave it behind." "What should I do?" Khalil asked. "Follow your purpose," Rashad said. "Remember why you are here. You seek to return to Baghdad, to rebuild your life, to become successful. Hold that purpose in your mind. Do not be distracted by other offerings, no matter how tempting. And when the moment comes, when you face the choice that requires the Jinn's intervention, trust your instincts. The Djinn will act whether you call it or not. It has its own reasons for helping you." The caravan reached the gates of the city. They were massive, perhaps 50 feet tall, made of what looked like bronze but shimmered with colors that bronze should not have. The gates stood open, and beyond them, Khalil could see streets paved with stones that glowed softly, buildings with windows that showed impossible vistas, markets where vendors sold things that could not exist. "We will rest here for the remainder of the night," Rashad announced. "Explore if you wish, but stay together. Do not wander alone. Do not accept gifts from strangers. Do not make bargains with anyone you meet. And return to the caravan before dawn. Those who are not here when we leave will be left behind." The travelers dispersed, some heading immediately into the city, others staying near the caravan, wary of the strange place. Khalil hesitated, uncertain whether to explore or stay safe. The decision was made for him when a figure approached from the city. A young woman, perhaps his own age, dressed in fine silks that shimmered with the same insubstantial quality as the city itself. She was beautiful, strikingly so, with dark eyes that seemed to see through him and a smile that was both welcoming and knowing. "Khalil of Baghdad," she said, her voice like music. "We have been expecting you." Khalil's hand moved to the brass lantern. "How do you know my name?" "The city knows all who walk the night road," she said. "We see them coming from far away. We prepare for their arrival. And you are special. You carry something of great power, something that interests us greatly." "The lantern," Khalil said, his grip tightening on it. "The Djinn," she corrected. "We care nothing for brass and metal, but the being inside." "Yes, that interests us. That has value. That could be traded for things you desire." She gestured toward the city. "Come, let me show you what we offer. Let me show you what you could have if you were willing to part with your burden." Every instinct told Khalil to refuse, to stay with the caravan, to avoid whatever trap this was. But curiosity, that same curiosity that had made him pick up the lantern in the first place, pushed him forward. "Show me," he said. The woman smiled and led him through the gates into the city of mirages. The streets were unlike anything Khalil had ever seen. They curved and twisted in ways that defied geometry, leading to places that should not connect but somehow did. The buildings were tall and elegant, with architecture that blended styles from a dozen different cultures. Persian domes next to Egyptian columns, Chinese pagodas beside Roman arches, all of it flowing together in a harmony that should have been chaotic but was instead beautiful. And everywhere there were people, or things that looked like people. They walked the streets, talked in quiet voices, bought and sold in markets that offered goods Khalil could not identify. Some looked human, others were clearly not, too tall, too thin, with eyes that glowed or skin that shimmered or features that shifted when he tried to focus on them. "What is this place?" Khalil asked. "Really?" "A market," the woman said. "A place where things are bought and sold, not just goods but possibilities, futures, pasts, choices, fates. Everything has value here. Everything can be traded." She led him to a plaza where a fountain stood, but the water flowing from it was not water. It was liquid light, flowing upward instead of down, forming shapes and images in the air before dissolving back into the fountain. "Look," she said, gesturing to the fountain. "See what we offer." Khalil looked into the flowing light and images began to form. He saw himself, but not as he was now. He saw himself in Baghdad, wealthy and successful, dressed in fine robes, surrounded by servants and luxury. He saw himself as a respected merchant, welcomed in the caliph's court, admired by his peers, envied by his rivals. He saw the life he had always wanted, the life he had been trying to build before the bandits destroyed everything. "This can be yours," the woman said softly. "All of it. The wealth, the success, the respect. We can give it to you. We can send you back to Baghdad with everything you need to become this person. All we ask in return is the lantern, the Djinn. Give it to us, and we will give you your dreams." Khalil stared at the images, transfixed. It was everything he wanted, everything he had worked for, everything he had lost and desperately wanted to regain. But something nagged at him. Something felt wrong. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you want the Djinn? What will you do with it?" The woman's smile never wavered. "That is not your concern. We have our purposes. The Djinn has value to us. That is all you need to know." "And the Djinn?" Khalil asked. "What happens to it? Does it go free or do you keep it imprisoned?" "Again, not your concern. You would be free of your burden, free to return home, free to live the life you see in the fountain. Why do you care what happens to a Djinn? It is not human. It does not think or feel as you do. It is a tool, a source of power, nothing more." But Khalil remembered the Djinn's voice in his mind, remembered the intelligence, the personality, the sense of a being that had suffered 700 years of imprisonment. And he remembered Zahir's honesty. The Djinn had not lied to him, had not pretended to be something it was not. It had stated the terms of their bargain clearly and kept its word. "No," Khalil said slowly, "I won't trade the lantern." The woman's smile faded. "You refuse. You would give up wealth and success for the sake of a Djinn? For a being that is using you for its own purposes?" "Maybe," Khalil said. "But at least the Djinn was honest about it. At least it told me the price. You're offering me dreams without explaining what they'll cost. And I've learned enough to know that nothing in this city is free." The woman's appearance began to change. Her beauty faded, replaced by something harder, colder, more ancient. "You are wiser than you look, young merchant, or perhaps simply more stubborn. Very well. If you will not trade willingly, then we will take what we want." She raised her hand, and suddenly Khalil was surrounded. Figures emerged from the shadows, the same not quite human beings he had seen in the streets. They moved toward him with purpose, their hands reaching for the brass lantern. Khalil backed away, clutching the lantern to his chest. "Stay back!" But they kept coming, and he realized with a chill of fear that he was trapped. He was deep in the city, far from the caravan, surrounded by beings whose nature and power he did not understand. He could not fight them, could not escape them, could not. The brass lantern grew hot in his hands, burning hot, and he heard Zahir's voice, not in his mind this time, but spoken aloud, resonating through the plaza. "You dare to threaten one who is under my protection?" Smoke poured from the lantern, not from the crack in the seal, but through it, around it, as if the Djinn's power was too great to be fully contained anymore. The smoke formed into Zahir's massive shape, towering over the plaza, its burning eyes fixed on the beings that surrounded Khalil. "This mortal has made a bargain with me. His fate is mine to shape. You will not interfere." The woman, or whatever she truly was, stepped back, her expression a mixture of anger and fear. "The Djinn, Zahir. We did not know. We thought the seal still held you completely. The seal is cracked. I am partially free, and I will not allow my investment to be stolen by scavengers who trade in stolen dreams." Zahir's massive hand swept through the air, and the beings surrounding Khalil were blown backward like leaves in a storm. The plaza itself seemed to ripple and distort, as if the Djinn's power was too much for the city's insubstantial reality to contain. "Go," Zahir commanded Khalil. "Return to the caravan, now, while I hold them back." Khalil ran. He did not look back, did not question, just ran through the twisting streets, following instinct and luck and perhaps some guidance from the Djinn. The city seemed to fight him. Streets that had led one way now led another. Buildings that had been on his right were suddenly on his left. But he kept running, the brass lantern clutched to his chest, until finally he burst through the gates and saw the caravan ahead. Rashad stood at the gates, his expression grim. "You were foolish to enter alone, but you survived. That is what matters." Behind Khalil, the city seemed to shimmer and fade slightly, as if Zahir's power had damaged it somehow. The Djinn's smoke form was still visible in the plaza, holding back the beings that had tried to take the lantern. And then, as suddenly as it had manifested, the smoke flowed back into the lantern. Zahir's voice spoke one last time, quiet now, almost gentle. "The first intervention is complete. The first turning will be claimed. Rest now, Khalil of Baghdad. You have earned it." The lantern grew cool again, the city stabilized, and Khalil collapsed beside the caravan, his heart pounding, his hands shaking, alive and safe, and changed in ways he did not yet understand. The first intervention was complete. The first turning had been taken, and somewhere in his past or his future, a choice had been changed, a path had been altered, a version of himself had been replaced by someone different. He did not know what had been taken, did not know what he had lost or gained, but he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was no longer exactly the person he had been when he entered the city. The transformation had begun. Chapter 6. The Second Intervention. The Palace Beneath the Sand. The caravan left the city of mirages as dawn approached, the strange metropolis fading behind them like a dream dissolving in morning light. Khalil walked in silence, exhausted from the night's events, his mind churning with questions about what had happened, what had changed, what the Djinn had taken from him. But he felt no different. His memories seemed intact. His thoughts were his own. Whatever turning Zahir had claimed, it was not immediately obvious. Perhaps it was something small, something he would not notice until its consequences unfolded. Or perhaps it was something large, something fundamental, and he simply could not see it yet because he was still too close to the event. Layla walked beside him, her presence comforting in its quiet steadiness. "You survived your first test," she said. "That is more than many can say." The city of mirages has claimed countless travelers who thought they could outwit it, who believed they could take what it offered without paying the price. I almost gave them the lantern, Khalil admitted. When I saw the life they were offering, the wealth, the success, everything I've ever wanted, I almost agreed. But you didn't, Layla said. You chose to keep your bargain with the Djinn rather than trade it for an easier path. That shows character, wisdom, or perhaps simply stubbornness. She smiled. Sometimes it is hard to tell the difference. The Djinn saved me, Khalil said. It manifested, drove them away, protected me. Why? It could have let them take the lantern. It could have made a new bargain with them, found a different path to freedom. Because you are its chosen instrument, Layla said. The Djinn has invested in you. It has cracked its seal to help you, has used its power on your behalf. It cannot afford to lose you now, not before the 3 interventions are complete, not before it has claimed its 3 turnings and shaped you into whatever it needs you to be. She paused. But there may be more to it than that. Djinn are not simple creatures. They have pride, honor, their own codes of behavior. Zahir made a bargain with you. It stated the terms clearly and honestly. Perhaps it feels bound by that honesty to see the bargain through properly. Perhaps it would consider abandoning you to be dishonorable, beneath its dignity. You make it sound almost noble, Khalil said. Noble is the wrong word, Layla replied. Djinn are not noble or ignoble. They simply are. They follow their own nature, their own purposes, but they are not mindless forces. They have personality, preference, pride. Zahir could have lied to you, could have pretended to be your friend while using you. Instead, it told you the truth. That suggests a certain integrity, a certain respect for honesty, even in a relationship built on mutual use. The caravan traveled through the day, resting in the shade of rock formations when the sun grew too hot, moving again when evening approached. Khalil dozed fitfully, his dreams full of colored lights and shifting cities, of beings that were not quite human, and offers that were too good to be true. When he woke, the sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and red, and ahead he saw something that made him sit up in alarm. A sandstorm. A massive wall of sand and wind, stretching across the horizon, moving toward them with terrible speed. "Rashad!" someone shouted. "Storm coming!" The caravan master stood at the front of the line, studying the approaching storm with his ancient eyes. "That is no natural storm," he said quietly. "Look at how it moves. Look at its shape. That is a summoned storm. Someone or something has sent it to stop us." "The city?" Khalil asked, joining him. "Are they still trying to take the lantern?" "Perhaps," Rashad said. "Or perhaps something else has taken an interest in you. The Djinn's power is not subtle. When Zahir manifested in the city, every being of magic within 100 miles felt it. Some may have decided that a partially freed Djinn is too dangerous to allow to travel freely. They may be trying to stop you before Zahir grows stronger." The storm was closer now, perhaps a mile away. Khalil could see shapes moving within it, not just sand, but figures, beings made of wind and dust, with eyes that glowed like embers. "What do we do?" Khalil asked. "We cannot outrun it," Rashad said. "We cannot fight it. Our only hope is to find shelter. And there," he pointed to a rock formation ahead, a cluster of large boulders with what looked like a cave entrance at their base. "There, quickly, everyone to the cave." The caravan rushed forward, the travelers and camels moving as fast as they could across the sand. The storm was gaining on them, the wind already beginning to pick up, sand stinging their faces, the temperature dropping as the unnatural weather approached. They reached the cave entrance just as the storm hit. The travelers poured inside, pulling the camels with them, crowding into the darkness as the wind howled outside. Khalil was one of the last to enter, and as he did, he looked back and saw the storm engulf the entrance, saw the figures within it reaching toward him with hands made of wind and sand. Then Rashad pulled him inside, and they were in darkness, the sound of the storm muffled by stone and earth. "Light!" Rashad commanded, and several travelers uncovered their lanterns, casting colored light through the cave. It was larger than Khalil had expected, not just a cave, but a passage leading deeper into the earth. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and covered with carvings. Not random scratches, but deliberate symbols, writing in a language Khalil did not recognize. "This is old," Rashad said, running his hand over the carvings. "Very old, pre-Islamic, perhaps even pre-Christian. This was made by people who lived here thousands of years ago, when the desert was not desert but grassland and forest." "What does it say?" Layla asked, studying the symbols. "I do not know," Rashad admitted, "but the style. I have seen similar carvings in other ancient places, places of power, places where magic was worked. This may have been a temple or a tomb, or a place where sorcerers gathered to perform rituals." The brass lantern in Khalil's hands grew warm. Zahir's voice spoke in his mind, quiet but urgent. "This place is dangerous, more dangerous than the storm outside. We should not be here." "The Djinn says this place is dangerous," Khalil said aloud. Rashad nodded. "Of course it is. All ancient places of power are dangerous, but we have no choice. The storm will last for hours. We must wait it out. But we should not go deeper. We should stay near the entrance, ready to leave as soon as the storm passes." But one of the travelers, a young man, perhaps a few years older than Khalil, dressed in the robes of a scholar, was already moving deeper into the cave, his lantern held high, his expression fascinated. "Wait," Rashad called. "Do not go further. We do not know what is down there." "But look at these carvings," the scholar said, his voice echoing in the passage. "This is an incredible find. This could be a lost temple, a forgotten library, a treasure trove of ancient knowledge. We cannot simply ignore it. We can and we will," Rashad said firmly. "Return to the group, now." But the scholar was not listening. He had reached a point where the passage opened into a larger chamber, and his lantern light revealed something that made him gasp in wonder. "There's a palace down here," he called back. "An entire palace, carved into the rock. You have to see this." Against his better judgment, against Rashad's warnings, Khalil found himself moving forward, drawn by curiosity, by the scholar's excitement, by the same impulse that had made him pick up the brass lantern in the first place. He reached the chamber and stopped, stunned by what he saw. It was indeed a palace, or the remains of one, a vast underground space, perhaps 100 feet across, with columns carved from the living rock, with walls covered in intricate reliefs, showing scenes of daily life from some ancient civilization. There were chambers leading off the main hall, rooms that might have been living quarters or storage or places of worship, and in the center of the hall on a raised platform stood a statue, a massive statue, perhaps 20 feet tall, carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It depicted a figure that was part human, part something else, with the body of a man but the head of a jackal or a wolf, with hands that ended in claws and eyes that were inlaid with gems that glowed faintly in the lantern light. "What is that?" Khalil whispered. "A god," the scholar said, his voice full of awe, "or a demon, or something in between. The ancient peoples of this region worshipped many beings before the coming of the prophet. This must be one of them, a deity of the desert perhaps, or of death, or of magic." The brass lantern in Khalil's hands grew hot. Zahir's voice was urgent now, almost panicked. "Leave, now. That statue is not just a statue. It is a prison, like my lantern, but older, stronger. Something is sealed inside it, something that should not be released. We need to leave, Khalil said, backing toward the passage. The Djinn says, but the scholar was not listening. He had approached the statue, was examining the base, was running his hands over the carvings there. There's writing here, he said. Instructions, perhaps, or a warning. If I could just read it. His hand touched something, a symbol, a trigger, something that should not have been touched, and the statue's eyes flared with sudden terrible light. The ground shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and cracks appeared in the black stone of the statue, spreading like lightning across its surface. "Run!" Rashad shouted from the passage entrance. "Everyone out! Now!" But it was too late. The statue shattered, and something emerged from within. Something that had been imprisoned there for thousands of years, sealed away by ancient sorcerers, forgotten by the world above. It was massive, even larger than the statue that had contained it. It had the same jackal-headed form, but this was no carved stone. This was living flesh, or something like flesh, covered in fur that seemed to be made of shadow. Its eyes burned with intelligence and hunger and rage at its long imprisonment. The scholar screamed and tried to run, but the creature was faster. One massive hand swept out and grabbed him, lifting him off the ground as easily as a child lifts a doll. Khalil stood frozen, watching in horror as the creature examined the scholar with those burning eyes. And then it spoke, its voice like grinding stone, like the echo of tombs, like death itself given sound. "Free after 4,000 years, free." It looked at the scholar in its hand. "You released me, you broke the seal. I should be grateful, I should reward you." The creature's mouth opened, revealing teeth like daggers. "But I am hungry, and gratitude is a luxury I cannot afford." "No!" Khalil shouted, not thinking, just reacting. "Let him go." The creature's head turned toward him, and its eyes fixed on the brass lantern. "Another prison, another sealed one. I sense a kindred spirit, a Djinn, bound as I was bound, trapped as I was trapped." It dropped the scholar, who scrambled away toward the passage and began to move toward Khalil. "Perhaps we can help each other. Perhaps we can free each other. Give me the lantern, mortal. Let me break the seal. Let me release my brother in imprisonment." The brass lantern burned in Khalil's hands. Zahir's voice was clear and commanding. "Call my name, now. This is the second intervention. Call my name and I will manifest. I will fight this creature. I will protect you. But you must call me. You must give permission. The bargain requires it." Khalil did not hesitate. "Zahir," he shouted, "I call upon you. Second intervention. Help me." The seal on the lantern cracked further, and smoke poured out. More than before, faster, more substantial. Zahir manifested in the underground palace, its form filling the space, its burning eyes meeting the eyes of the ancient creature. "Anubarak," Zahir said, and there was recognition in its voice. "I know you. You were sealed before I was, before the pyramids fell, before the old kingdoms crumbled. You should have remained sealed. As should you, Zahir of the brass prison." The creature, Anubarak, replied. "But here we are, both partially free, both seeking full freedom. Why should we fight? Why not help each other?" "Because you would destroy everything in your path," Zahir said. "You are hunger and death. You were sealed for good reason. I may be dangerous, but I am not mindless. I do not kill for the sake of killing. I have purpose, intelligence, restraint." "Restraint is weakness," Anubarak growled. "Freedom is power, and power should be used." "Then we disagree," Zahir said. "And I will not allow you to harm my investment." The two beings clashed. It was not a physical fight, not exactly. It was a battle of power, of magic, of wills. The underground palace shook with the force of it. Columns cracked, The ceiling began to collapse. The travelers in the passage screamed and ran for the entrance. Khalil stood transfixed, watching two ancient beings of immense power fight over him, over the lantern, over purposes he could barely understand. And then Zahir spoke, its voice strained with effort. "Khalil, run. I cannot hold it long. The seal limits my power. I can drive it back, but I cannot destroy it. Run while I hold it. Get to the surface. Get to safety." Khalil ran. He did not look back, did not watch the outcome of the battle, just ran through the collapsing palace, through the passage, toward the cave entrance where the storm was beginning to fade. Behind him, he heard Zahir's voice one last time. "The second intervention is complete. The second turning will be claimed. And Khalil, you are becoming interesting, more interesting than I expected. Perhaps this bargain will be more valuable than I thought." Khalil burst out of the cave into the fading storm. The wind was dying down, the sand settling. The caravan was there, the travelers safe, the camels restless but unharmed. And behind him, deep in the earth, two ancient beings continued their battle, their power shaking the ground, their conflict echoing through the desert night. Rashad pulled Khalil away from the cave entrance. "The palace is collapsing," he said. "The entire structure is coming down. Whatever is happening down there, we do not want to be near it when it ends." The caravan moved away quickly, putting distance between themselves and the cave. And as they walked, Khalil felt it, the second turning. Something in his past or future changing, shifting, becoming different. A choice altered, a path redirected, a version of himself replaced by someone new. He did not know what had been taken, did not know what he had lost or gained, but he knew, with absolute certainty, that he was changing, that each intervention, each turning, was reshaping him into someone different, someone the Djinn needed him to be, someone he might not recognize when the transformation was complete. 2 interventions down, 1 to go, 2 turnings claimed, 1 remaining, and ahead, somewhere in the darkness, the final test awaited. Chapter 7: The Cursed Prince and the Hunt of the Ifrits. The caravan traveled through the remainder of the night in tense silence. Behind them, the ground continued to shake periodically as the battle between Zahir and Anubarak raged in the depths. No one spoke of what had happened. No one asked questions. They simply walked, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the collapsing palace. Khalil walked in a daze, his mind struggling to process everything he had witnessed. 2 ancient beings of immense power fighting over him, over the lantern, over purposes that spanned millennia. He was just a merchant from Baghdad. How had he become entangled in conflicts that predated his civilization? The brass lantern was quiet now, cool to the touch. Zahir had retreated back into its prison, exhausted from the battle, conserving its strength for whatever came next. But Khalil could still feel its presence, still sense its awareness. The Djinn was always watching, always listening, always planning. As dawn approached, Rashad called for a halt. They had reached an oasis, a real one this time, not a mirage or a magical construct, but actual water and palm trees and solid ground. The travelers collapsed gratefully, drinking deeply, washing the sand and dust from their faces, resting their exhausted bodies. Khalil sat beneath a palm tree, the brass lantern in his lap, staring at nothing. Layla approached and sat beside him, offering him dates and water. "You have had quite a journey," she said gently. 2 interventions in 2 nights. Most who bargain with Djinn go months or years between such events. But you seem to attract danger like a lodestone attracts iron. "I don't want to attract it," Khalil said tiredly. "I just want to go home. I just want to rebuild my life. Is that so much to ask?" "For most people, no," Layla said. But you are not most people anymore. You carry a Djinn. You have been marked by ancient magic. You walk the night road. The ordinary life you once had is gone. You can never return to it, even if you make it back to Baghdad. You have seen too much, changed too much, become too much. She paused. The question is not whether you can return to your old life. The question is, what new life will you build? What will you become when the 3 interventions are complete? Will you be someone better than you were, or someone worse? Will you use what you have learned, what you have gained, for good purposes or selfish ones? I don't know, Khalil admitted. I don't even know who I am anymore. The turnings, whatever Zahir has changed, I can't see them. I can't tell what's different, but I feel different, like I'm becoming someone else and I don't even realize it's happening. That is the nature of change, Layla said. It happens gradually, invisibly, until one day you look in a mirror and do not recognize the person looking back. But you still have choices. You still have agency. The Djinn can alter your path, but it cannot control your heart. Remember that. Before Khalil could respond, a commotion arose at the edge of the oasis. The travelers were gathering, pointing at something approaching from the desert. Khalil stood and looked, shading his eyes against the rising sun. A figure was stumbling toward them across the sand. A man, dressed in tattered robes that might once have been fine, moving with the desperate energy of someone who had been walking for days without rest. As he drew closer, Khalil could see that he was young, perhaps 25, with a face that might have been handsome if not for the exhaustion and fear etched into every line. The man reached the oasis and collapsed at the water's edge, drinking desperately. Rashad approached him cautiously, offering food, speaking in a calm voice. "Who are you, traveler? What brings you to the night road?" The man looked up, and Khalil saw his eyes, haunted, desperate, full of a terror that went beyond physical exhaustion. "My name is Farid," he gasped. I was a prince, the 3rd son of the Sultan of the Eastern Provinces, but I am cursed, hunted. I have been running for 3 weeks, and they are still following me. They will never stop, never." "Who is following you?" Rashad asked. "Ifrits," Farid said, and the word sent a chill through the gathered travelers. "I made a bargain with them, a foolish bargain. I wanted power, wanted to be more than just a 3rd son with no real prospects. They offered me magic, offered me the ability to command lesser Djinn, offered me everything I desired. And in return," he laughed bitterly, "in return I promised them my service. 20 years of service, they said. It seemed like nothing at the time. 20 years in exchange for a lifetime of power." He looked around at the travelers, his eyes wild. "But I did not understand what service meant. They wanted me to do terrible things, to use the magic they gave me to harm innocents, to spread chaos, to serve their purposes in the mortal world. When I refused, when I tried to break the bargain, they declared me oath-breaker, and the punishment for breaking an oath to the Ifrits is death, slow death, hunted death. They chase me across the desert, appearing every night, driving me forward, never letting me rest, never letting me stop, until I die of exhaustion or they finally catch me and tear me apart." Rashad's expression was grave. "You should not have come here. The night road is neutral ground. By bringing your hunters here, you endanger everyone in this caravan." "I had nowhere else to go," Farid said desperately. "Every other path was closed to me. The night road was my last hope. I thought perhaps if I could reach a place between worlds, the Ifrits could not follow. Perhaps the rules would be different here." "The rules are not different," Rashad said. "The Ifrits can travel the night road as easily as we can. more easily perhaps, and if they are hunting you, they will find you. Tonight, tomorrow night. It does not matter. They will come. Farid looked around at the travelers, his desperation turning to pleading. Then help me. Please, I know I have no right to ask, but I am begging you. Help me escape them. Help me break this curse. I will give you anything, everything I have. Just help me. The travelers looked at each other uncomfortably. No one wanted to get involved in a conflict with Ifrits. Ifrits were among the most powerful and dangerous of the Djinn, beings of fire and rage, capable of terrible destruction, bound by codes of honor that made them relentless in pursuit of oathbreakers. Khalil felt the brass lantern grow warm in his hands. Zahir's voice spoke in his mind, quiet but clear. This is not your concern. This prince made his own choices, his own bargains. His fate is his own. Do not involve yourself. Do not draw the attention of the Ifrits. We have enough enemies already. But Khalil looked at Farid, at the terror in his eyes, at the exhaustion in his body, at the desperation of someone who had been running for weeks with no hope of escape. And he remembered his own desperation in the desert, his own fear when the sand raiders attacked, his own relief when Zahir had intervened. I'll help you, Khalil heard himself say. No. Zahir's voice was sharp, commanding. Do not do this. This is foolishness. This is suicide. The Ifrits will come for him, and if you stand in their way, they will destroy you, and I cannot protect you from them, not yet. The seal is too strong. I have used too much power already. I need time to recover. But Khalil ignored the Djinn's warning. I have a Djinn, he said to Farid. A powerful one. It has already intervened twice to save me. Perhaps it can help you too. Perhaps together we can find a way to break your curse, or at least escape the Ifrits. Rashad shook his head. This is a mistake, young merchant. You do not understand what you are offering. The Ifrits are not like the sand raiders or the creature in the palace. They are intelligent, organized, bound by ancient laws. They will not be frightened away or fought off. They will come, and they will take what they believe is theirs, and anyone who stands in their way will be destroyed. Then we run, Khalil said. We keep moving. We stay ahead of them. We find a way to break the curse before they catch us. You are a fool. Zahir's voice was cold with anger. A sentimental fool. This prince means nothing to you. His fate is not your concern. Yet you risk everything. Your life, your future, my freedom, for a stranger. Why? Khalil did not have a good answer. He did not know why he was doing this. Perhaps it was because he had been helped when he needed it. Perhaps it was because he could not stand by and watch someone die when he had the power to help. Perhaps it was simply because, despite everything, despite the turnings and the changes, some part of him still believed in doing the right thing. Because it's right, he said quietly, speaking to both Zahir and himself. Because I can help. Because if I don't, who will? Zahir was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was different, not angry but thoughtful, almost curious. Interesting, very interesting. I have changed your path twice now. I have taken 2 turnings. I have reshaped your fate. Yet you still make choices like this. Choices that defy logic, that risk everything for principle. Either you are extraordinarily foolish, or there is something in your nature that my turnings cannot touch, something fundamental, something valuable. The Djinn paused. Very well, I will help, not because I care about this prince, not because I believe in your principles, but because I am curious. I want to see what you become. I want to see if your nature survives the third turning, and I cannot do that if the Ifrits kill you tonight." Relief flooded through Khalil. "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. The Ifrits will come at sunset. They always come at sunset, and when they do, I will manifest for the third and final time. I will use the last of my power to protect you and this foolish prince, and then the seal will break completely, I will be free, and the third turning will be claimed. After tonight, Khalil of Baghdad, you will be someone new, someone I have shaped, someone who serves my purposes, whether you realize it or not. Are you prepared for that? Are you willing to pay that price to save a stranger?" Khalil looked at Farid, at the hope dawning in the prince's eyes, at the possibility of salvation after weeks of terror. "Yes," he said, "I'm willing." "Then so be it. Rest now. Gather your strength. Tonight, we face the Ifrits. Tonight, the bargain is completed. Tonight, you become who you were always meant to be." The day passed slowly. The caravan rested at the oasis, but there was no peace. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone felt the tension building as the sun moved across the sky, as the shadows grew longer, as sunset approached. Farid told his story in more detail, how he had been approached by the Ifrits, how they had offered him power in exchange for service, how he had agreed without understanding the true cost, how they had asked him to use his magic to assassinate his own brothers, to clear his path to the throne, how he had refused and fled, and how they had been hunting him ever since. "I was a fool," he said. "I wanted power so badly that I did not ask the right questions. I did not consider the consequences. I thought I could control them, could use their magic for my own purposes. But you cannot control Ifrits. You can only serve them or die." Khalil understood. He had made his own bargain with a Djinn. He had his own price to pay. But at least Zahir had been honest with him. At least the terms had been clear. The Ifrits had deceived Farid, had hidden the true nature of their demands until it was too late. As the sun touched the horizon, Rashad gathered the caravan. "The Ifrits will come," he said. "There is no preventing it. But we can prepare. We can stand together. We can show them that the night road is not a place where they can simply take what they want without consequence." The travelers formed a circle around Khalil and Farid, their lanterns lit, their few weapons drawn. It was a pitiful defense against beings of fire and magic, but it was something. It was solidarity. It was the statement that they would not simply hand over one of their own without resistance. The sun set, darkness fell, and they came. 3 figures appeared at the edge of the oasis, materializing out of the twilight like nightmares given form. They were tall, taller than men, with bodies that seemed to be made of living flame barely contained in humanoid shape. Their eyes burned with an inner fire. Their voices, when they spoke, crackled like burning wood. "Farid, son of the Sultan, oath-breaker, covenant violator, your time has come. Surrender yourself. Face your punishment. Do not make this harder than it needs to be." Farid stood in the center of the circle, trembling but defiant. "I will not surrender. I made a mistake, yes, but I will not compound it by serving your evil purposes. I will not kill innocents for your amusement. I will not be your tool. Then you will be our example," the lead Ifrit said. "You will be the warning to others who think they can break bargains with us. Your death will be slow. Your suffering will be legendary. And when we are done, every mortal who considers dealing with Ifrits will remember your name and your fate." The Ifrits began to move forward, their flames growing brighter, their heat washing over the oasis like a physical force. The travelers backed away, their circle breaking, their courage failing in the face of such overwhelming power. Only Khalil stood firm, the brass lantern clutched to his chest. "Zahir," he said quietly, "third intervention, final intervention. I call upon you. Protect us. Protect Farid. Help us escape the Ifrits." The seal on the lantern shattered. Not cracked this time. Completely shattered. The wax exploded into dust. The symbols carved into the brass flared with light and then faded. And smoke poured out. More smoke than should have been able to fit inside the lantern. More smoke than seemed physically possible. Smoke that filled the oasis, that rose into the sky, that formed into a shape so massive it dwarfed even the Ifrits. 700 years. The Djinn was magnificent and terrifying. Its body was solid now, not just smoke, but flesh, or something like flesh, something that existed between the physical and the spiritual. It stood perhaps 30 feet tall, with arms like pillars and hands that could crush stone. Its face was both human and inhuman, beautiful and terrible, with eyes that burned with intelligence and power accumulated over millennia, and it was free, truly free. The seal was broken. The prison was shattered. Nothing bound it anymore except the bargain it had made, the 3 interventions it had promised, the debt it owed to the mortal who had released it. "Zahir the Ancient," the lead Ifrit said, and there was surprise in its voice. Surprise and something that might have been fear. "We did not know you were involved. We did not know the mortal carried your prison. Now you know," Zahir said, its voice like thunder, like the roar of sandstorms, like the grinding of mountains. "And now you will leave. The mortal Khalil is under my protection. The Prince Farid is under my protection. You will not touch them. You will not harm them. You will leave this place and not return." "The prince broke an oath," the Ifrit said. "He violated a covenant. We have the right—" "You have no rights here," Zahir interrupted. "This is the night road. This is neutral ground. And I am Zahir, elder of the Djinn, bound by no king, servant to no master. I have made a bargain with this mortal. I have promised 3 interventions. This is the 3rd, and I will fulfill my promise, even if it means destroying you." The Ifrits looked at each other. They were powerful, yes, but Zahir was older, stronger, and now fully free. A battle between them would be devastating, and the outcome was uncertain. The Ifrits were bound by their own codes, their own sense of honor and hierarchy. They would not fight an elder Djinn over a single oath-breaker, no matter how much they wanted revenge. "Very well," the lead Ifrit said finally. "We will leave, but the prince's debt remains. Someday, somewhere, it will be paid. Oaths cannot be broken without consequence. That is the law." "Then let the consequence be mine," Zahir said. "I claim the prince's debt. I take it upon myself. He owes you 20 years of service. I will serve that time in his place. 20 years from now, when I have settled my own affairs, when I have completed my own purposes, I will come to you, I will serve, I will fulfill the oath he broke. This I swear by the ancient laws, by the codes that bind all Djinn, by my name and power." The Ifrits were silent, considering. Finally, the lead Ifrit nodded. "We accept. The debt is transferred. The prince is free. But you, Zahir, are bound. 20 years from this night, you will come to us. You will serve. If you fail, if you break this oath, then you become what he was, hunted, cursed, destroyed. Do you understand?" "I understand," Zahir said, "and I accept. Now leave. Your business here is finished." The Ifrits dissolved into flame and smoke, disappearing into the night, their presence fading like a bad dream. The oasis was quiet again, peaceful, as if they had never been there. Zahir looked down at Khalil, and for the first time there was something like warmth in its burning eyes. The third intervention is complete. The bargain is fulfilled. You are free of your debt to me, Khalil of Baghdad, and I am free of my prison. The massive Djinn began to shrink, to become more human-sized, more manageable. It settled into a form that was still impressive, but no longer overwhelming, perhaps 8 feet tall, with features that were almost human, with eyes that still burned, but with a gentler fire. "You surprised me," Zahir said. "I thought I understood you, thought I could predict your choices. But you chose to help the prince even when I warned you not to, even when it risked everything. That was unexpected, interesting, valuable." "What about the third turning?" Khalil asked. "You said you would claim it. You said you would change me." Zahir smiled, a strange expression on its inhuman face, but unmistakably a smile. "I already have. All 3 turnings have been claimed. All 3 choices have been changed. And you, Khalil, are now exactly who I need you to be." "What did you change?" Khalil asked, almost afraid to know the answer. "That is for you to discover," Zahir said. "Over time, as you live your life, as you make new choices, you will find that certain things come easier to you now. Certain paths open that were closed before. Certain opportunities present themselves. And you will wonder, is this who I always was, or is this who the Djinn made me?" The Djinn looked around at the caravan, at the travelers who watched in awe and fear. "I am free now. I could leave, could pursue my own purposes, but I find that I am curious about what you will do, curious about who you will become. So I will travel with you for a time. I will guide you back to Baghdad. I will help you rebuild your life, not because I owe you, our bargain is complete, but because I choose to, because you have earned my respect, and because I want to see what happens next." Khalil did not know what to say. He had expected the Djinn to leave once it was free, to disappear into the desert, to pursue whatever ancient purposes it had, but instead it was choosing to stay, choosing to help, not out of obligation but out of something else. Curiosity, respect, friendship. Could a Djinn feel friendship for a mortal? "Thank you," Khalil said quietly, "for everything, for the interventions, for saving Farid, for being honest with me, for not lying about what you were doing." "Honesty is efficient," Zahir said. "Lies require too much effort to maintain, and you deserved the truth. You were brave enough to accept it." The Djinn turned to Farid, who stood trembling, hardly able to believe he was free. "You, Prince, your debt is paid, your curse is lifted, the Ifrits will not hunt you anymore. But remember this, bargains have consequences, oaths have weight. Next time you seek power, think carefully about the price, think about who will pay it, and choose wisely." Farid fell to his knees. "Thank you. Thank you. I will never forget this. I will never forget what you have done for me. If there is ever anything I can do to repay you—" "There is," Zahir said. "Return to your father's kingdom. Tell him what happened. Tell him about the Ifrits, about the bargain, about the price you almost paid. And when you become Sultan, and you will, for that is one of the turnings I have made, remember this lesson. Rule wisely, rule justly. Do not seek power for its own sake. Use it to help others. That is how you repay this debt." Farid nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I will. I swear it. I will be a good sultan, a just sultan. I will remember." Rashad approached cautiously, his ancient eyes studying Zahir with a mixture of respect and wariness. "You are free now, great Djinn, yet you choose to walk the night road with us. Why?" Because the night road leads to interesting places, Zahir said. Because this mortal has become interesting, and because I have been imprisoned for 700 years. I am in no hurry. I have time. I will walk with you for a while. Learn about this new world. See what has changed since I was sealed away, and then, when I am ready, I will pursue my own purposes. The Djinn looked at Khalil. But first, I will see this merchant safely home. I will help him rebuild his life. I will watch him become what I have made him. That is my choice, my decision, my gift to the mortal who freed me. And so it was decided. The caravan would continue its journey, but now with a Djinn walking among them, a being of ancient power, freed from its prison, choosing to travel with mortals not out of obligation, but out of curiosity, and something that might have been friendship. Khalil looked down at the brass lantern, now just an empty vessel, its purpose fulfilled, its prisoner freed. He had carried it across the desert, had made a bargain with the being inside, had paid a price he still did not fully understand. 3 interventions, 3 turnings, 3 changes to his fate. He did not know who he had become, did not know what choices had been altered, what paths had been redirected, but he knew he was different. He could feel it, even if he could not see it yet. And ahead, the night road continued, leading toward Baghdad, toward home, toward a future that was no longer entirely his own, but which he would face with courage and hope, and the strange companionship of a Djinn who had chosen to walk beside him. The journey was not over, but the bargain was complete, and whatever came next, Khalil would face it as whoever he had become, shaped by the Djinn's turnings, but still himself in the ways that mattered most. The stars wheeled overhead, the caravan moved forward, and in the desert night, a young merchant and an ancient Djinn walked side by side, both changed by their encounter, both curious about what the future would bring. The night road stretched ahead, full of mysteries and dangers and possibilities, and they walked it together, ready for whatever came next. Chapter 8. The Night City of the Djinn. The caravan traveled for 3 more nights, moving steadily westward along the night road. The atmosphere had changed since Zahir's liberation. The Djinn walked at the head of the caravan alongside Rashad, its form now stabilized at a height just taller than a man, its presence commanding, but no longer overwhelming. The other travelers gave it respectful distance, but their fear had diminished. Zahir had proven itself not a mindless force of destruction, but a being of intelligence, honor, and unexpected compassion. Khalil walked near the middle of the caravan, the empty brass lantern still tucked in his robe. He could not bring himself to discard it, though it no longer held any power. It had become a talisman, a reminder of the journey he had taken, the bargain he had made, the person he was becoming. Farid walked beside him much of the time. The prince had changed since his liberation from the Ifrits' curse. The haunted look had left his eyes, replaced by something calmer, more thoughtful. He spoke often of his plans to return home, to reconcile with his father, to become worthy of the throne Zahir had predicted he would inherit. "I was so desperate for power," Farid said one night as they walked, "so consumed by ambition that I could not see the danger. I thought the Ifrits' offer was a blessing. I thought I was clever enough to use their magic without paying the real price." He shook his head. "But you were different. You knew the Djinn's price from the beginning. You accepted it with open eyes. That takes a kind of courage I did not have." "I'm not sure it was courage," Khalil said. "I was desperate too, stranded in the desert, about to die. I would have made almost any bargain to survive." "But you made it honorably," Farid insisted. "You kept your word. You did not try to cheat or escape, and when the Djinn needed you to be brave, when it needed you to help me even though it put you in danger, you did it. That is the kind of person I want to be. The kind of sultan I want to become." Khalil was quiet for a moment. "The Djinn changed me," he said softly. "3 turnings, it called them. 3 choices in my life that were altered. I don't know what they were. I don't know who I would have been without those changes. Sometimes I wonder if the person you're praising even exists. Maybe I'm just who the Djinn made me." "Does it matter?" Layla asked, joining their conversation. She had been walking nearby, listening as she often did. "Whether your choices were your own or shaped by the Djinn, you are still the one living with them. You are still the one deciding, moment by moment, who you will be. The past may have been altered, but the future is still yours to create." Before Khalil could respond, Zahir called back from the front of the caravan, "We approach the city of twilight. Prepare yourselves. What you are about to see is not for mortal eyes ordinarily, but because you travel the night road, because you walk with me, you will be permitted to witness it." The travelers murmured with curiosity and apprehension. Even Rashad looked uncertain, which was unusual for the ancient caravan master. "What is the city of twilight?" Khalil asked, moving closer to Zahir. The Djinn's burning eyes regarded him with something that might have been amusement. "It is the city where Djinn dwell when they are not in your world. A place between the physical and the spiritual. A realm that exists in the spaces between moments, in the gaps between heartbeats. Mortals can sometimes glimpse it at dawn or dusk, when the boundary between worlds is thinnest, but they cannot enter, cannot truly see, cannot comprehend what they are witnessing." "Why are you taking us there?" Rashad asked. "Because I wish to present Khalil to my kin," Zahir said, "to show them the mortal who freed me, to gain their counsel about the turnings I have made, and—" The Djinn paused. "To ensure his safety. There are those who will not be pleased that I am free, those who will seek to harm him out of spite or fear or simple cruelty. By bringing him to the city, by declaring him under my protection before the assembled Djinn, I make it clear that to harm him is to offend me." Khalil felt a chill. "Who would want to harm me?" "Those who benefited from my imprisonment," Zahir said. "Those who feared what I might do if I were free. Those who bear old grudges against my lineage. The world of Djinn is complex, Khalil. We have politics, feuds, alliances, and enmities that span millennia. By freeing me, you have inserted yourself into conflicts you do not understand. I would protect you from the consequences." "That's reassuring," Khalil said weakly. The desert before them began to change. The air shimmered with colors that should not exist, hues between blue and green, shades darker than black, lights brighter than white. The sand itself seemed to become translucent, and through it, Khalil could see another landscape superimposed over the physical world, towers rising impossibly high, bridges spanning distances that bent geometry, gardens where plants grew in patterns that hurt to look at directly, and everywhere, beings of light and shadow moving through this impossible architecture, going about incomprehensible business. "Welcome," Zahir said quietly, "to the city of twilight, the realm of the Djinn. Walk carefully, touch nothing, speak only when spoken to, and stay close to me. This place is dangerous for mortals in ways you cannot begin to understand." The caravan moved forward, and the physical world seemed to fade, replaced by the otherworldly landscape. Khalil felt strange, lighter, as if gravity had less hold on him, but also heavier, as if the air itself had substance and weight. His perceptions felt stretched, expanded. He could see things from multiple angles simultaneously, could hear sounds that had colors, could taste emotions in the air. "This is what it feels like to exist between worlds," Layla whispered beside him. "To stand in the spaces where reality is fluid. Do not try to understand it with logic. Simply experience it. Let it flow through you." The caravan entered the city proper, walking down streets that curved in impossible directions, past buildings that seemed to exist in more dimensions than three. The Djinn who dwelled here paused in their activities to watch the mortals pass. Some looked curious, others disdainful. A few looked hungry, as if mortals were prey that had wandered foolishly into their domain. But none approached, none threatened, because Zahir walked at the front of the caravan, and Zahir's presence was a clear warning. These mortals are under protection. They reached a plaza at the city's heart, dominated by a structure that might have been a palace or a temple or something for which mortal language had no name. It was built of crystallized light and solidified shadow, with spires that reached into dimensions Khalil could not perceive, with doorways that led to places that were not merely other rooms, but other realities entirely. And there, gathered in the plaza, were hundreds of Djinn, perhaps thousands, beings of every conceivable form, some humanoid, others animal-like, still others completely abstract, more concept than creature. They had gathered in response to Zahir's return, drawn by the news that one of the Ancient Ones had been freed after 700 years of imprisonment. Zahir stood before them and spoke, its voice resonating through the plaza, through the city, perhaps through the entire realm of Djinn. "I am Zahir the Ancient, I who was sealed 7 centuries ago by the sorcerer Hakim al-Rashid. I who have been imprisoned in brass and bound by symbols. I have been freed. The seal is broken. I stand before you once more, liberated and whole." A murmur ran through the assembled Djinn, surprise, calculation, and in some cases clear displeasure. "I was freed by this mortal," Zahir continued, gesturing to Khalil. "Khalil of Baghdad, a merchant who found my prison by chance and broke the seal through necessity. In accordance with the ancient laws, I made a bargain with him. 3 interventions in exchange for 3 turnings of his fate. That bargain has been fulfilled. He has paid his price. I have gained my freedom." Zahir's burning eyes swept across the assembled Djinn. "I declare this mortal under my protection. He is not to be harmed, not to be manipulated, not to be used as a pawn in your schemes. Any who violate this protection will answer to me. This I swear by my name and power." The plaza was silent. Then one of the Djinn stepped forward, a being of pure flame, its form constantly shifting, its voice like the roar of wildfire. "You were sealed for a reason, Zahir. You were too powerful, too dangerous, too willing to interfere in mortal affairs. Your imprisonment brought peace, balance. Now you return, and with you comes the threat of chaos. Why should we accept this? Why should we not seal you again?" Zahir regarded the fire Djinn calmly. "Because you cannot, Infernus. The sorcerer who sealed me is 7 centuries dead. The magic he used is lost. No one living has the knowledge or power to imprison me again. You may try to destroy me, but that would require a battle that would devastate this realm and yours. Is that a price you wish to pay?" Another Djinn stepped forward, this one formed of living shadow, with eyes like distant stars. "And what of your purposes, Zahir? What will you do with your freedom? Will you return to your old ways? Will you meddle in human kingdoms? Will you gather power and seek to rule?" "My purposes are my own," Zahir said, "but I will tell you this. I have changed. 700 years of imprisonment gives one time to think, to reconsider, to evolve. I am not who I was when I was sealed. I do not seek to rule. I do not seek dominion over mortals or Djinn. I seek only to exist freely, to pursue knowledge, to understand this new world that has emerged while I was imprisoned. And the mortal? The shadow Djinn asked. Why protect him? What is he to you? Zahir looked at Khalil, and something like warmth flickered in its burning eyes. He is interesting. He freed me not out of ambition or desire for power, but out of necessity and desperation. He accepted the price of our bargain without attempting to cheat or escape. He made choices that surprised me, that challenged my expectations, that revealed something valuable in the mortal nature. The Djinn paused. I have reshaped his fate. I have taken 3 turnings. I have made him into someone who serves my purposes, but he remains himself in the ways that matter. His core nature, his fundamental character, those I could not change, could not touch, and that intrigues me. I wish to see what he becomes, what he achieves, how the turnings I have made will manifest in his life. A third Djinn spoke, this one appearing almost human, a beautiful woman with skin like polished bronze and hair that flowed like water. You speak of him as if he were a friend, as if there were affection between you. Is the great Zahir growing sentimental in his old age? Perhaps, Zahir said, and there might have been amusement in its voice. Or perhaps I simply recognize value when I see it. This mortal has qualities that are rare, courage without recklessness, ambition without cruelty, wisdom despite his youth. I wish to preserve those qualities, to see them flourish. Call it sentimentality if you wish. I call it investment. The assembled Djinn murmured among themselves, discussing, debating, calculating. Finally, the fire Djinn, Infernus, spoke again. Very well, we accept your return. We acknowledge your protection of this mortal. But know this, Zahir, you will be watched. Your actions will be scrutinized. If you become a threat to the balance, if you endanger our realm or the mortal world, we will act. We may not be able to seal you, but we can make your existence. Difficult. I expect nothing less, Zahir said. I welcome your scrutiny. It will keep me honest, prevent me from falling into old patterns. I have no desire to become what I once was. The gathering began to disperse, the Djinn returning to their incomprehensible activities. But a few approached Khalil directly, studying him with curiosity. The bronze-skinned Djinn woman circled him slowly. So you are the mortal who freed Zahir. You do not look particularly special. What made the Ancient One choose you? What qualities do you possess that warranted such investment? Khalil struggled to find words. How did one speak to a being of pure magic? I don't know. I just tried to survive. I made a bargain and kept my word. I helped someone when I could. That's all. The Djinn woman laughed, a sound like water over stones. That's all, he says, as if honor and compassion were common qualities, as if keeping one's word were a simple thing. You underestimate yourself, mortal. Or perhaps you do not yet understand what Zahir has made you. She leaned closer, her eyes, which seemed to contain entire oceans, studying his face. The turnings have changed you. I can see them, woven into your fate like golden threads, one in your past, one in your present, one in your future. Each one subtle, each one profound. You are not the person you would have been. You are someone new, someone shaped by Djinn magic to serve Djinn purposes. What purposes? Khalil asked. Zahir has never fully explained. Because Zahir does not fully know, the Djinn woman said. The Ancient One claims it has changed, that it no longer seeks power or dominion. Perhaps that is true. Perhaps imprisonment has indeed reformed it. But Djinn do not make bargains without reason. Do not reshape fates casually. Whatever you are meant to become, whatever role you are meant to play, it is significant, important, part of some larger pattern that even Zahir may not fully perceive. She stepped back. My name is Mariah. I am what you might call a seer among Djinn. I see patterns, possibilities, futures that might be. And your future, mortal Khalil, is bright with possibility and dark with danger. You will return to Baghdad. You will rebuild your life. You will become wealthy and influential. But you will also face choices, terrible choices, and how you make those choices will determine not just your fate, but the fates of many others. What choices? Khalil asked urgently. What should I do? If I told you, you would try to avoid them or prepare for them, and that would change the pattern. The choices must be genuine, made in the moment, without foreknowledge. But I will tell you this, trust the person you have become. Trust the changes Zahir has made. They were not made to harm you. They were made to help you survive what is coming, to give you the strength and wisdom you will need. She began to fade, her form becoming translucent. Go with Zahir. Return to your world. Live your life. And when the choices come, remember, you are more than you were. And that more is exactly what the world will need. Then she was gone, dissolved into mist and possibility. Khalil stood in the plaza of the city of twilight, surrounded by beings of impossible power, carrying secrets he did not understand about his own nature. He felt small and overwhelmed and terrified, but he also felt something else, determination, purpose. Whatever Zahir had made him, whatever changes had been woven into his fate, he would face them. He would make the best choices he could. He would become whoever he was meant to be, not passively, not as a puppet, but actively, consciously, with full acceptance of the responsibility that came with power and choice. Zahir approached, its form now almost gentle, almost protective. Come, we have stayed long enough. The caravan waits and Baghdad calls. It is time to return to your world, to begin the life that awaits you. Will you come with me? Khalil asked. To Baghdad? For a time, Zahir said. I will help you establish yourself, ensure your safety, guide you as you discover who you have become. And then, when you no longer need me, when you are strong enough to walk your own path, I will pursue my own purposes. But I will not abandon you, not completely. You freed me. You gave me back my life. I will not forget that. They walked together through the impossible city, rejoining the caravan at its edge. The other travelers looked shaken by their experience in the city of twilight, but also awed, changed by witnessing a reality so far beyond their normal existence. As they prepared to leave, to return to the physical world and the night road, Khalil took one last look at the city, at the towers that reached into infinity, at the Djinn moving through their incomprehensible existence, at a reality so vast and strange that mortal minds could barely comprehend it. And he understood finally how small he was, how limited his perspective had been, how much more there was to the world than he had ever imagined. But he also understood that small did not mean insignificant, that mortals, for all their limitations, had something Djinn did not, something precious, something worth protecting. They had choice without predestination. They had lives measured in years rather than millennia, which gave each moment weight and meaning. They had the ability to change, to grow, to become something new without centuries of accumulated history weighing them down. He was mortal, he was small, he was limited, but he was also free in ways that even Djinn were not, and that was enough. Chapter 9. The Third Turning Revealed. The caravan traveled for 5 more nights along the night road, leaving the city of twilight far behind. The path gradually curved back toward the familiar world, the landscape becoming more recognizable, the air feeling more solid, more real. They were approaching the boundary between the night road and the ordinary trade routes, the place where Khalil would have to decide whether to continue with the caravan or strike out toward Baghdad on his own. Zahir walked beside him often during these nights, speaking of the world as it had been 700 years ago, comparing it to what it had become during the Djinn's imprisonment. Sometimes the conversations were philosophical, sometimes practical. Sometimes they simply walked in comfortable silence, a mortal and a Djinn, companions bound by a bargain that had been fulfilled, but which had created something unexpected: friendship. On the 7th night since leaving the city of twilight, as they rested near a spring that marked one of the last stops before the night road rejoined the mortal world, Zahir spoke with unusual seriousness. "Khalil, it is time I told you about the turnings, about what I changed, about who you have become." Khalil had been half dreading, half anticipating this conversation. "I'm listening." The Djinn settled down beside him, its form becoming smaller, more intimate, easier to speak with. "When I took the turnings, I reached into 3 moments of your life, one in your past, one in your present, one in your future. Each moment was a choice point, a place where your path could have gone 2 different ways. I altered those moments. I made you choose differently, and those different choices have shaped who you are." "Tell me," Khalil said quietly. "I need to know." "The first turning," Zahir began, "was in your childhood. You were perhaps 8 years old. There was a boy in your neighborhood, a bully who tormented weaker children. One day, you saw him attacking a younger boy, taking his food, pushing him into the mud. In the original timeline, you walked away. You told yourself it was not your concern. You were afraid of the bully, afraid of becoming his next target. I changed that moment. I made you intervene. I gave you the courage to stand up to the bully, to defend the younger boy. Even though you were afraid, you got hurt in the fight, but you also stopped the bully, saved the younger boy. And that moment changed how you saw yourself. It planted a seed, the understanding that you could be brave, that you could help others even when it cost you something." Khalil tried to remember. There was a memory, vague, dreamlike, of a fight in an alley, of standing up to someone larger and meaner, of pain and pride mixed together. Had that really happened, or was it just a memory Zahir had woven into his past? "The second turning," Zahir continued, "was more recent. Just before you joined the caravan that was attacked by bandits. You were in Baghdad, preparing for your journey. A friend came to you, a fellow merchant who had fallen on hard times. He asked to borrow money, not a small amount, enough that lending it would strain your own resources. In the original timeline, you refused. You told yourself you needed every coin for your own venture. You told yourself he was not your responsibility. You let him leave empty-handed, and your friendship died that day. I changed that moment. I made you lend him the money. I made you sacrifice some of your own security to help a friend in need. And that choice changed something in you. It strengthened your sense of loyalty, your willingness to help others even at cost to yourself. It was that quality, that generosity, that made you help Prince Farid even when it put you in danger." Khalil nodded slowly. He did remember lending money to Rahman, his old friend from the merchant quarter. He remembered the man's gratitude, the promise to repay, the feeling that he had done the right thing, even though it left him financially vulnerable. "And the third turning?" Khalil asked. The one in my future? Zahir was quiet for a long moment. The third turning is not yet completed. It exists in potential, waiting to manifest. But I will tell you what I changed. In your original timeline, you would have returned to Baghdad and rebuilt your trading business through ruthlessness. You would have become wealthy by exploiting others, buying low from desperate sellers, selling high to those with no other options, forming alliances based on mutual greed rather than mutual respect. You would have succeeded, become rich, but you would have been alone, feared rather than loved, wealthy but empty. I changed that future. I altered the choices you will make. Instead of ruthlessness, you will build your success on fairness, on treating partners well, on remembering what it felt like to be desperate, to be vulnerable, to need help. You will still become wealthy, perhaps even more wealthy than in the original timeline, but you will achieve it through honor rather than exploitation, and you will build something that lasts, that means something, that helps others while helping yourself. Zahir looked at Khalil intently. That is the third turning. That is who you will become. Not a ruthless merchant who succeeds by crushing others, but a just merchant who succeeds by lifting others. It is not yet complete. You must still make the choices. But the path is clearer now. The tendency is stronger. I have tilted your fate toward light rather than darkness. Khalil sat in silence, absorbing this information. 3 turnings, 3 changes, a childhood moment of courage, a recent moment of generosity, a future path away from ruthlessness and toward honor. You made me better, he said quietly. You didn't just change my path. You made me a better person. I made you the person I needed you to be, Zahir corrected. But yes, better is an accurate description. I could have made you ruthless, could have shaped you into a tool for my own purposes. But I realized during our journey that your value lay not in your ruthlessness but in your integrity, your compassion, your willingness to do the right thing even when it cost you. The Djinn's form seemed to soften. I was sealed 700 years ago because I had become too dangerous, too willing to manipulate and use mortals for my own ends. I had forgotten that they were not merely tools, but beings with their own value, their own purposes, their own dignity. My imprisonment gave me time to remember that, to understand it deeply. When I shaped your turnings, I did so with that understanding. I could have made you my puppet. Instead, I made you more fully yourself, more brave, more generous, more just. Those qualities were always in you. I merely strengthened them, brought them to the surface, gave them opportunity to flourish. Why? Khalil asked. Why would you do that? You could have made me easier to control, made me serve your purposes more directly. Because, Zahir said, and there was something almost human in its voice. I have learned that true power comes not from control, but from alliance, from partnership, from respect. You are more valuable to me as a free agent who chooses to work with me than as a puppet who must obey. And perhaps, the Djinn paused. Perhaps I wanted to prove to myself that I had changed, that I could use my power to help rather than to dominate, that I had learned something from 700 years of imprisonment. Khalil reached out slowly and placed his hand on Zahir's arm, a gesture that, weeks ago, would have been unthinkable. A mortal touching a Djinn, but now it felt natural, appropriate. Thank you, he said, for making me better, for giving me the chance to become someone worthy of this friendship. You were always worthy, Zahir said. I simply helped you see it, helped you become it more fully. They sat together in silence as the night deepened. Around them, the other travelers rested, each lost in their own thoughts about the journey they had taken, the things they had witnessed, the ways they had been changed by traveling the night road. Layla approached and sat down beside them. "We reach the boundary tomorrow night," she said. "The place where the night road rejoins the ordinary world. The caravan will continue on to other destinations, but you, Khalil, will head north to Baghdad. Your journey with us will end." "Will I see you again?" Khalil asked. Layla smiled. "Perhaps. The night road has a way of bringing people together again when they need to meet. But whether or not we meet again in this life, know that you have been changed by this journey. You have seen things few mortals ever witness. You have walked in the city of twilight. You have befriended a Djinn. You have learned truths about yourself that most people never discover." She looked at Zahir. "And you, Ancient One? What will you do when Khalil reaches Baghdad?" "I will stay with him for a time," Zahir said. "Help him establish his business, ensure his safety, teach him what I can about navigating the world with the changes I have made. And then, when he no longer needs me, I will pursue my own purposes. I have debts to honor. 20 years from now, I must serve the Ifrits in place of Prince Farid. But until then, I am free. I will use that freedom wisely, learn about this new world, find my place in it." "Will you stay in the mortal world?" Layla asked, "or return to the city of twilight?" "I will walk between," Zahir said, "just as I did before my imprisonment. I am not fully of one world or the other. I exist in the spaces between, and that is where I belong." The Djinn looked at Khalil. "But I will always be available to you. If you need me, if you call, I have fulfilled my bargain, but our connection goes beyond bargains now. You freed me. You treated me with honor. You became my friend, and I do not forget my friends." Khalil felt warmth in his chest, a mixture of gratitude and affection and something deeper. He had started this journey as a desperate merchant trying to survive. He was ending it as someone transformed, not just by the turning Zahir had made, but by the experiences he had lived through, the choices he had made, the person he had become through struggle and growth, and the acceptance of change. "Tomorrow night," Rashad announced, joining their group, "we reach the boundary. Be prepared for the transition. The night road does not release its travelers gently. There is always a cost, always a leaving behind. You will return to the mortal world different from how you left it. Make peace with that, accept it, and carry what you have learned into the life that awaits." The night deepened. The stars wheeled overhead, and Khalil sat between a Djinn and a storyteller, between the magical and the mortal, preparing for the final step of his journey, the return to the ordinary world, carrying extraordinary changes, ready to become whoever he was meant to be. Chapter 10: The Boundary and the Return. The final night of travel began with a sense of anticipation and melancholy mixed together. The caravan had been home for Khalil for weeks, a strange, magical home that existed between worlds, but home nonetheless. The travelers had become familiar faces. The rhythm of walking through the night had become comfortable. The presence of Zahir had become natural, but all journeys must end. All roads must eventually lead somewhere solid, and tonight the night road would release them back into the mortal world. The landscape began to change as they walked. The impossible colors faded. The geometry became more normal. The air grew denser, more substantial. Reality was asserting itself again, reclaiming the space from the in-between realm they had been traveling through. "The boundary is close," Rashad announced as the night deepened. "Perhaps another hour. Prepare yourselves." Khalil walked beside Zahir, trying to memorize everything. The feel of the sand beneath his feet, the sound of the camel bells, the colored lights of the lanterns, the sense of walking through a world that was more than just physical. "What will you do first when you reach Baghdad?" Zahir asked. "Find my family," Khalil said. "They must think I'm dead. I need to tell them I'm alive. I need to—" He paused. "I need to see if I still recognize myself in their eyes, if they can see the changes, if I'm still who they remember." "You will be different," Zahir said. "They will sense it even if they cannot understand it. But you are still Khalil, still their son, their brother, their friend. The core of who you are has not changed, only been refined, strengthened, made more fully itself." They walked in silence for a while. Then Khalil asked the question that had been weighing on him. "Will you really stay, or will you disappear once I reach the city?" "I will stay," Zahir said firmly. "I have promised, and I keep my promises. I will remain with you for as long as you need me, help you establish your business, protect you from those who might seek to harm you because of your connection to me, teach you what I can about navigating a world that is more complex than you currently understand." The Djinn paused. "And perhaps I will enjoy it, having a friend, having a purpose beyond my own survival, being part of something that matters. I have been alone for 700 years. It will be pleasant to not be alone anymore." Ahead, Khalil saw something that made his breath catch, a line across the desert, not a physical line, nothing you could touch, but a visible boundary nonetheless. On one side, the colors of the night road still shimmered. On the other, everything was normal. Ordinary sand, ordinary sky, ordinary reality. The caravan slowed as it approached the boundary. "This is where we part ways," Rashad said, turning to address the travelers. "Those who are returning to the mortal world, step forward. Those who wish to continue on the night road, remain with the caravan." Khalil stepped forward. So did Farid. So did a handful of other travelers who had joined the caravan at various points, seeking passage to destinations in the mortal world. "One last thing," Rashad said, his ancient eyes moving from face to face. "When you cross the boundary, time will reassert itself. You have been traveling the night road for what felt like weeks, but time moves differently here. In the mortal world, only 5 days will have passed. 5 days since you entered the night road. 5 days that will feel like they contained months of experience, but only 5 days nonetheless." "5 days?" Khalil said, startled. "But we've been traveling for weeks," Zahir confirmed. "But that was night road time, between world time. In your world, your friends and family will think you have been gone less than a week. That will make your return easier, less to explain, less shock for those who care about you." Layla approached Khalil and embraced him gently. "Remember what you have learned," she said. "Remember who you have become, and tell your story when the time is right. Others need to hear it. Others need to know that change is possible, that redemption exists, that even the darkest journeys can lead to light." She stepped back. "I will remain with the caravan. The night road is my home now, but I will remember you, Khalil of Baghdad. I will remember your courage and your kindness, and I will tell your story to other travelers, other seekers, other lost souls who walk the paths between worlds." Khalil bowed to her, then to Rashad. "Thank you for taking me in, for guiding me, for showing me a world I never knew existed." "It was our honor," Rashad said. "You brought something valuable to the caravan. You freed a Djinn. You helped a prince. You showed that mortals can still surprise us, still demonstrate qualities we had thought were rare or lost. Walk well, Khalil of Baghdad. May your path be clear and your purpose true." Khalil turned to the boundary. Zahir stood beside him, its form now almost perfectly human-sized, almost ordinary-looking, except for the eyes that still burned with Djinn fire. "Ready?" the Djinn asked. "Ready," Khalil said. Together they stepped across the boundary. The transition was like stepping from water into air, from dream into waking. Reality crashed back with sudden force, the heat of the desert, the weight of his body, the solid, unchanging nature of physical existence. The colored lights disappeared. The sense of endless possibility narrowed to single actuality. The world became fixed, definite, real. Khalil stumbled, disoriented. Zahir caught him, steadied him. "It takes a moment to adjust," the Djinn said, "to return to a world that follows only one set of rules. Breathe, center yourself, remember where you are and who you are." Khalil breathed deeply, feeling his head clear. He looked around. They were standing on a familiar road, the trade route that led from the eastern deserts to Baghdad. He recognized landmarks. He knew where he was. "We're maybe 2 days' walk from the city," he said. "Then we walk," Zahir said. "I will maintain this form, mostly human, mostly ordinary, enough to pass without drawing too much attention. You will introduce me as—" "What? A traveling companion? A merchant from distant lands?" "A friend," Khalil said. "I'll introduce you as a friend who helped me survive the desert." "That's true enough." They began walking. After the strangeness of the night road, the ordinary desert felt almost dull, but it also felt safe, comprehensible, real in a way that comforted even as it constrained. Farid walked with them for a while, then turned south where the road branched. "My father's kingdom is that way," he said, pointing. "I will return. Tell my father everything. Begin to learn how to be worthy of the throne Zahir has foreseen." "Thank you, Khalil. Thank you, Zahir. I will never forget what you have done for me. Never." "Be a good sultan," Zahir said. "Be just, be wise, be compassionate. That is how you repay the debt." Farid bowed deeply, then walked away, disappearing into the heat shimmer of the desert. Khalil watched him go, hoping the prince would indeed become the ruler he promised to be. Then he and Zahir continued north, toward Baghdad, toward home, toward whatever future awaited a merchant transformed by Djinn magic, and a Djinn learning to exist in a world that had changed during its 700 years of imprisonment. They walked through the day, rested in the shade during the hottest hours, walked again through the evening. As night fell, they could see the lights of Baghdad in the distance, thousands of lamps and torches, the glow of the great city that was the jewel of the Islamic world. "Tomorrow," Khalil said, "tomorrow we'll enter the city. Tomorrow I'll see my family again. Tomorrow I'll begin whatever life awaits me." "Are you afraid?" Zahir asked. "A little," Khalil admitted. "I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I can live up to who you've made me. What if I fail? What if the turnings you made don't take? What if I fall back into old patterns, old weaknesses?" "You will not," Zahir said with certainty, "because the changes I made are real, fundamental, woven into your very nature. You are brave because I gave you the experience of bravery in childhood. You are generous because I gave you the experience of generosity recently. You are just because I have tilted your future toward justice rather than ruthlessness. These are not superficial changes. They are who you are now." The Djinn placed a hand on Khalil's shoulder. "But even more importantly, you have the memory of this journey. You have walked the night road. You have faced sand raiders and ancient creatures and Ifrits. You have stood in the city of twilight. You have bargained with a Djinn and kept your word. Those experiences have shaped you just as surely as my turnings, perhaps more so. You are not the man who left Baghdad weeks ago. You are someone new, someone better, someone who has earned the right to succeed. Trust that. Trust yourself, and trust that I will be here to help when you need it. They made camp on a hill overlooking the city, watching the lights twinkle in the darkness. Khalil felt a mixture of emotions, excitement and fear, hope and uncertainty, eagerness to begin and reluctance to end this strange journey. But as he looked at the city, at the home he had thought he would never see again, he felt something else too. Gratitude for the journey, for the survival, for the changes, for the Djinn who had become his friend. Tomorrow, he said again, but this time with confidence. Tomorrow we begin. Together, Zahir said. Together, Khalil agreed. And as the night deepened and the stars emerged, a young merchant and an ancient Djinn sat on a hill overlooking Baghdad, preparing for the next chapter of their shared story. A story of transformation and friendship, of turnings and choices, of a bargain fulfilled and a partnership beginning. The night road was behind them. The city awaited. And whatever came next, they would face it together, mortal and Djinn, friend and friend, walking side by side into a future bright with possibility. Chapter 11. The Return to Baghdad. They entered Baghdad through the eastern gate as the sun rose, painting the city in shades of gold and copper. The guards at the gate barely glanced at them, just another merchant and his companion returning from a journey. Nothing remarkable, nothing to draw attention. But Khalil felt the weight of every step. This was home. This was the place he had thought he would never see again. These were the streets he had walked since childhood, now transformed by his changed perception, both familiar and strange, both comforting and unsettling. Zahir walked beside him in human form, tall and striking, but not impossibly so. The Djinn had clothed itself in fine robes, had given itself features that were handsome but not supernaturally beautiful. To any observer, it looked like a wealthy merchant from some distant land, perhaps Persia, perhaps India, perhaps somewhere even more exotic. Its eyes were the only giveaway. They still held that inner fire, that ancient intelligence, but few looked closely enough to notice. "Where first?" Zahir asked quietly. "My family's house," Khalil said. "In the merchant quarter. My mother, my 2 sisters, my younger brother. They need to know I'm alive." They wound through the morning streets, past markets just opening, past merchants setting up their stalls, past the familiar chaos and energy of Baghdad waking. Khalil found himself noticing details he had never paid attention to before. The way sunlight fell on brass lamps, the intricate patterns of tiles on building walls, the faces of people going about their ordinary lives, unaware of the worlds that existed just beyond their perception. The night road had changed how he saw everything, had opened his eyes to depths and complexities he had been blind to before. They reached his family's house, a modest 2-story building in a respectable neighborhood. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Khalil stood outside for a moment, suddenly nervous. How would they react? What would he tell them? How much of the truth could they accept? He knocked. After a moment, the door opened. His younger brother Hassan stood there, 15 years old, thin and serious, the worry of the household written on his face. When he saw Khalil, his eyes went wide. "Khalil," he whispered, "is it really you?" "It's really me," Khalil said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm alive. I'm home." Hassan let out a cry and threw his arms around his brother. "Mother, sisters, come quickly. It's Khalil. He's alive. He's home." The house erupted into chaos. His mother emerged from the back room, flour on her hands from making bread, her face transforming from confusion to shock to overwhelming joy. His sisters came running from upstairs, crying out, their voices overlapping in questions and exclamations and prayers of thanksgiving. They pulled him inside, touching him as if to confirm he was real, weeping and laughing simultaneously. His mother held his face in her hands, studying him intently. "You look different," she said. "Thinner, harder, older." She looked into his eyes and something in her expression changed, recognition of something she could not quite name. "What happened to you, my son? Where have you been?" "It's a long story," Khalil said. "May my friend come in? He helped me survive. He saved my life more than once." His mother looked at Zahir, who stood respectfully at the threshold. For a moment, her eyes narrowed. Mothers see things others miss, sense things that are not quite right. But then she nodded. "Any friend of my son's is welcome in this house. Come, both of you. Sit, eat, tell us everything." They gathered in the main room, the family crowding around Khalil, barely able to contain their relief and curiosity. Zahir sat slightly apart, observing, saying little, letting Khalil control the narrative. Khalil told them a version of the truth. The caravan attacked by bandits, being stranded in the desert, finding the brass lantern, meeting travelers who helped him, a strange journey through unfamiliar lands, making it home through luck and the help of kind strangers. He did not mention Djinn or turnings or the night road or the city of twilight. Some truths were too strange for ordinary ears. Some experiences could not be shared with those who had not lived them. But his mother kept studying him throughout the telling, kept looking at him with that penetrating gaze that mothers have. And when he finished, she spoke quietly. "There is more, much more, things you are not telling us. I can see it in your eyes. You have seen things, experienced things, changed in ways I do not understand." She reached out and took his hand. "But you are still my son, still Khalil, still the boy I raised, grown into a man. Whatever you experienced, whatever you cannot tell us, I trust that it has made you stronger, wiser, better. That is enough for me." She looked at Zahir. "And you, mysterious friend who saved my son, you are welcome in this house for as long as you wish to stay. Any debt we owe you for bringing Khalil home can never be fully repaid, but you will always have a place at our table and in our hearts." Zahir bowed his head respectfully. "You honor me, mother of Khalil. I ask nothing in return. Your son's friendship is reward enough." The Djinn's voice was carefully modulated, deeper than human but not impossibly so, formal but not archaic. But Khalil saw his mother's eyes widen slightly at the tone, the cadence, the something not quite human quality that no amount of disguise could completely hide. She knows, Khalil thought, or suspects, but she's choosing to accept rather than question, choosing trust over fear. The day passed in a blur of reunion. Neighbors came to welcome Khalil home. Friends stopped by to confirm the news. His sisters made a feast. His brother peppered him with questions about the journey. His mother watched and worried and quietly thanked God for the return of her son. As evening fell, Khalil and Zahir walked through the city together, Khalil showing the Djinn the places that mattered to him, the market where his father had once traded, the mosque where he prayed, the coffee house where merchants gathered to discuss business and politics. "This is your world," Zahir observed. "These are your people. This is the life you fought so hard to return to. Are you satisfied? Is it what you hoped it would be?" "It's different than I remembered," Khalil admitted. "Smaller somehow. less significant. I thought returning would feel like coming back to the center of the world, but now I've seen the night road, seen the city of twilight, seen how vast and strange reality truly is. Baghdad seems limited, constrained, just one small place in an infinite universe. But it is your place, Zahir said, your home, the foundation from which you will build your new life. Size and significance are not the same thing. This city may be small compared to the city of twilight, but it is real, solid, yours. That gives it value beyond measure. They stopped at a plaza overlooking the Tigris River. The water flowed broad and steady, reflecting the lights of the city, carrying boats and trade goods and the life of the city on its ancient current. Tomorrow, Khalil said, I need to begin rebuilding. I have no goods, no capital, no business, just my reputation and whatever skills I possess. How do I start? With the truth, Zahir said. Not the full truth. Most would not believe it, but the essential truth. You are a merchant who lost everything and survived, who learned lessons in the desert about value and integrity and the true meaning of wealth, who returns with a partner, me, who brings knowledge and resources from distant lands. Together we will build something new, something better than what was lost. What resources? Khalil asked. What can you offer that won't reveal what you are? Zahir smiled, an expression that was almost human, but not quite. I have been alive for millennia. I have seen empires rise and fall. I know where things of value are hidden. I know trade routes that have been forgotten. I know which merchants in which cities are trustworthy and which are not. I cannot create wealth from nothing. That would draw too much attention, but I can guide you, advise you, help you make wise choices that will build wealth honestly and sustainably. The Djinn looked out over the river, and more than that, I bring myself, a partner who will never cheat you, never betray you, who has already invested in your success by shaping your fate. Your prosperity is my prosperity. Your reputation is my reputation. We are bound together now, not by magic or obligation, but by choice and friendship. That is the most valuable resource of all. Khalil felt warmth in his chest, gratitude and affection, and hope for the future. Then tomorrow we begin. Together, Zahir agreed. They returned to Khalil's family home as night fell. His mother had prepared a sleeping space for Zahir in a guest room. The Djinn accepted with grace, though Khalil suspected it did not actually sleep, merely maintained the appearance of humanity by going through the motions. As Khalil lay in his own bed for the first time in weeks, in a room that seemed both familiar and strange, he thought about the journey he had taken, about the desperate merchant who had stumbled into the desert and found a brass lantern, about the bargain that had saved his life and changed his fate, about the turnings that had reshaped who he was. He did not know exactly what Zahir had changed, did not know which memories were original and which had been woven in by Djinn magic, but he knew the result. He was braver than he had been, more generous, more just, more aware of the complexity and wonder of the world, more determined to build something meaningful rather than just profitable. He was Khalil of Baghdad, merchant and friend to a Djinn, shaped by magic but defined by his own choices, ready to begin the next chapter of his life. Tomorrow it would all begin. Chapter 12. The Merchant and the Djinn. The partnership between Khalil and Zahir became one of the most successful and mysterious in Baghdad's merchant quarter. Within a year, they had established a trading company that dealt in exotic goods from distant lands, spices from the east, silks from China, metals from the north, rare woods from the south. But their success came not from ruthlessness or exploitation, as Khalil might have pursued in the original timeline Zahir had altered. Instead, it came from fairness, integrity, and reputation. They paid their suppliers well. They treated their employees with respect. They honored their commitments even when it cost them profit. And slowly, steadily, they built something that lasted. Other merchants noticed. Some were impressed by their ethics. Others were skeptical, waiting for the trap, the betrayal, the moment when the mask would drop and the ruthlessness would emerge. But that moment never came. Khalil and Zahir simply continued to operate with honor, and their reputation grew accordingly. Khalil's family prospered along with the business. His mother saw her daughters married to good men. His brother joined the company, learning the trade, showing promise as a merchant in his own right. The modest house in the merchant quarter was expanded, made more comfortable, though never ostentatious. Khalil remembered too well what it was like to have nothing, and he was determined never to forget that lesson. Zahir remained in human form, maintaining the fiction of being a merchant from distant lands. Most people accepted this. A few, those with sharper perceptions or deeper knowledge, suspected there was more to the story, but no one challenged it directly. The Djinn's power was carefully hidden, but it was there, felt by those sensitive enough to sense such things, and those people wisely chose not to investigate too closely. The brass lantern that had once imprisoned Zahir sat on a shelf in Khalil's office, empty now, powerless, but kept as a reminder. Sometimes Khalil would hold it, running his fingers over the symbols that had once bound one of the most powerful Djinn in existence, marveling at how much his life had changed since the day he found it half buried in desert sand. 2 years after returning to Baghdad, Khalil married. Her name was Amina, the daughter of a scholar, educated and intelligent, with a quick wit and a kind heart. When Khalil told her the truth about Zahir, about the night road and the bargain and the turnings, she listened without interrupting. Then she thought carefully before speaking. "So you are not entirely the man you would have been," she said. "You have been shaped by Djinn magic, changed in fundamental ways." "Yes," Khalil admitted. "Does that trouble you?" Amina smiled. "It explains why I fell in love with you. You have qualities that seem almost impossible in a merchant. True generosity, real integrity, actual concern for others beyond what benefits you. I wondered how you maintain those qualities in a profession that usually destroys them. Now I understand. They were woven into you by magic, by design, by a Djinn who wanted you to be better than you might have been." She took his hand, "And I am grateful for that. I am grateful to Zahir for making you into someone worthy of love, someone I can trust, someone I can build a life with." Zahir attended the wedding, dressed in fine robes, drawing curious looks from the guests who sensed something unusual about Khalil's mysterious business partner. During the reception, the Djinn approached Amina and bowed respectfully. "You are wise to see the truth and accept it," Zahir said quietly. "Not all would, not all could. Khalil is fortunate to have found someone who can understand the complexity of what he has become." "And what will you do now?" Amina asked. "Now that Khalil has a wife, a family, a stable life, will you stay, or will you move on to other purposes?" "I will stay for a time," Zahir said. "There are still things I can teach him, still ways I can help, and I have grown fond of this life, of having friends, of being part of something that matters. I, who was imprisoned for 700 years, alone in darkness, find that I am not eager to be alone again." Then you will always be welcome in our home, Amina said. Whatever you are, whatever you have done, you saved my husband. You made him who he is. That is enough. 5 years after returning to Baghdad, Khalil stood on the roof of his house at sunset, looking out over the city. So much had changed. His business was thriving. His family was growing. Amina was pregnant with their second child. His reputation in the merchant quarter was solid. He had become someone who mattered, someone whose opinion was sought, someone who could help others the way he had once been helped. Zahir joined him on the roof, materializing from shadows the way the Djinn sometimes did when no one else was watching. You have built something good, Zahir observed. Something lasting. The turnings I made have manifested exactly as I hoped. You are the person I needed you to be. And more than that, you are happy, fulfilled, living a life that has meaning beyond mere survival or success. I owe you everything, Khalil said quietly. My life, my fortune, my family, the person I have become, everything. You owe me nothing, Zahir corrected. The bargain was fulfilled years ago. What has happened since then is not debt, but gift, freely given, freely accepted. That is what friends do for each other. They stood in silence for a while, watching the sun set over Baghdad, painting the city in shades of gold and crimson. I will be leaving soon, Zahir said finally. Not forever, but for a time. I have obligations, purposes. The debt I took from Prince Farid, 20 years of service to the Ifrits, that time approaches. I must prepare. I must make arrangements. I must ensure that certain things are in order before I fulfill that oath. Khalil felt a pang of loss. How long will you be gone? Perhaps 20 years, perhaps longer. Time moves differently for Djinn. But I will return. I will check on you. Ensure your continued prosperity. Meet your children. Watch you grow old, as mortals do. The Djinn's voice softened. And when your time comes, when your life ends as all mortal lives must, I will be there. I will ensure you pass peacefully. That is my final gift to you, my promise, my gratitude for the freedom you gave me. Thank you, Khalil said, his voice thick with emotion, for everything, for the interventions, for the turnings, for the friendship, for making me better than I was, for showing me a world beyond what I knew. For all of it, it has been my honor, Zahir said. You freed me from 700 years of imprisonment. You treated me with respect when you could have tried to enslave me. You became the person I needed you to be. But more importantly, you became the person you needed to be. That is worth more than freedom, worth more than power, worth everything. The sun dipped below the horizon. Stars began to appear in the darkening sky. And on a rooftop in Baghdad, a mortal and a Djinn said goodbye. Not forever, but for a time. Bound by a bargain that had been fulfilled, sustained by a friendship that would last beyond bargains, beyond time, beyond the boundaries between mortal and immortal. Zahir faded into the twilight, returning to the spaces between worlds, to the paths only Djinn could walk, to the obligations and purposes that called to beings of ancient power. And Khalil remained, standing on his roof, looking up at the stars, carrying the memory of impossible journeys and magical transformations, ready to live the life that had been given to him, or made for him, or earned by him, or all of those things at once. The brass lantern sat in his office, empty but not powerless, a reminder of where he had been and who he had become. The night road existed somewhere beyond perception, carrying other travelers on other journeys, offering other transformations to those desperate or brave enough to walk its paths. And in Baghdad, a merchant lived with honor and prospered with integrity, shaped by Djinn magic but defined by his own choices, forever changed by a bargain made in desperation and fulfilled in friendship. Epilogue. 20 years later. Khalil was in his counting room when Zahir returned. He had grown older, his beard was streaked with gray, his face lined with years of experience, his body showing the wear that comes from decades of living. But his eyes were still sharp, still intelligent, still carrying the depth that came from having walked the night road and survived. The Djinn materialized in the corner of the room, stepping out of shadows, appearing as suddenly and completely as if it had never been gone. 20 years had not touched Zahir at all. The Djinn looked exactly as it had the day it left, unchanged, eternal. "Khalil," Zahir said warmly, "you have aged well, grown distinguished, become fully the man I knew you would be." Khalil stood, a smile spreading across his face. "Zahir, you kept your promise. You came back." "I always keep my promises," the Djinn said. "The debt to the Ifrits is fulfilled. 20 years of service, completed. I am free again to pursue my own purposes, and my first purpose was to return here, to see you, to know that you are well." They embraced, an odd sight, a mortal and a Djinn, but natural to them, the gesture of old friends reunited after long separation. "Tell me everything," Zahir said. "Your wife, your children, your business, your life. I want to know it all." They sat together as the afternoon faded to evening. Khalil recounting 20 years of life. 4 children, now grown or nearly so. A business that had expanded across 3 continents. Grandchildren on the way. Amina still at his side, still his partner in all things. A life rich with meaning and connection and purpose. "And the turnings?" Khalil asked. "The changes you made, do they still hold? Or have I drifted back to who I might have been?" "They hold," Zahir said. "They are permanent, woven into your very nature. But more than that, you have built upon them, made them truly your own. The courage I gave you in childhood, you have exercised 1,000 times. The generosity I gave you before your journey you have made into a defining characteristic. The justice I wove into your future you have turned into a principle that guides every decision." The Djinn smiled. "You are not merely who I made you. You are who you chose to become, using what I gave you as foundation. That is the best possible outcome. That is what I hoped for." "Will you stay now?" Khalil asked. "Or do other obligations call?" "I will stay for a time," Zahir said. "Years, perhaps. I wish to know your children, to meet your grandchildren when they arrive, to walk through this city you love and see how it has changed, to be your friend, as I was before, as I will be until your days are complete." They sat in comfortable silence as night fell over Baghdad. Outside, the city continued its eternal rhythm, people working and loving and living, merchants trading, scholars studying, the endless flow of human existence. And in a counting room above it all, a mortal and a Djinn sat together, bound not by magic or bargain, but by something simpler and more profound: friendship. The kind of friendship that transcends the boundaries between worlds, that survives decades of separation, that endures beyond the temporary nature of mortal life. Khalil had walked the night road, had made a bargain with a Djinn, had been transformed by magic and shaped by turnings, had returned to build a life of meaning and purpose, and Zahir had been freed from 700 years of imprisonment, had learned to value mortals not as tools, but as companions, had discovered that true power comes not from dominion but from connection. Their story was one of transformation, not just Khalil's transformation from desperate merchant to prosperous patriarch, but Zahir's transformation from imprisoned force of nature to being capable of genuine friendship. The brass lantern still sat on its shelf, empty and silent, a reminder of where they had begun. But the true treasure was not the lantern or the magic it had contained. The true treasure was what they had built together, a friendship that defied categorization, a partnership that transcended the mortal and the magical, a bond that would endure until Khalil's last breath and beyond, because Zahir had promised, and Zahir always kept its promises. The night road still existed, somewhere in the spaces between worlds, carrying other travelers on other journeys. The city of twilight still shimmered in the realm of Djinn, eternal and incomprehensible. But here, in Baghdad, in a counting room lit by lamplight, two friends sat together and shared stories, celebrating reunion, preparing for whatever time remained, grateful for the bargain that had brought them together, and the choices that had transformed a debt into devotion, an obligation into affection, a business arrangement into something that could only be called love. The stars wheeled overhead, the river flowed, the city breathed, and in the midst of all that ordinary life, something extraordinary persisted, a friendship between mortal and Djinn, a story that would be told in whispers on the night road for generations to come. A reminder that even in a world of magic and mystery, the most powerful force of all is the connection between two beings who choose to see each other not as means to an end, but as ends in themselves. This is the story of Khalil and Zahir, of the merchant and the Djinn, of the brass lantern and the three turnings, of the night road and the return home, of transformation and friendship and the understanding that who we are is shaped by our choices, whether those choices are our own or woven into us by ancient magic. It is a story with no true ending, because friendship does not end. It transforms, adapts, continues beyond separation and time, and even death itself. It endures in memory and meaning and the lives that are changed by connection. May we all walk our own night roads. May we all make our own bargains. May we all be transformed by our journeys and enriched by our friendships. May we all discover, as Khalil did, that the greatest treasure is not what we gain, but who we become and who we choose to walk beside. This is the end. This is the beginning. This is the wisdom of the night road, distilled into one simple truth. The journey changes us. The companions sustain us. The stories endure. And somewhere, always, the night road calls, offering transformation to those brave enough to walk it, magic to those desperate enough to seek it, and friendship to those wise enough to recognize its value. Walk well, choose wisely, and may your bargains be fulfilled with honor. The end.